This program deals with devil worship and satanic beliefs. It contains explicit scenes and descriptions of violent crimes and rituals.
Americans are asking, who attacked our country?
You have declared a subliminal jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
Everything pertaining to what's happening has never come to the surface. The world will never know the true facts of what occurred, my motives.
And night fell in a different world.
And Iblis is thinking, I should be getting this position, not Adam, and this guy is created from dirt.
And how did the army feel about you being head of the Temple of Set?
And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but
I want you to give me power over Adam, and I want you to give me soldiers and minions and all of these things.
The people had so much to gain and had such a material motive for putting a position on me. They'll never let the true facts of some of their lords to the world.
And I want you to be able to give me the ability to whisper into the hearts of mankind.
And who was the grotto leader? Don't remember the name. You don't remember the name of a person who involved you in murder?
Now these people are in very high positions, yeah? Yes.
Welcome back to Subliminal Jihad, episode 20. I am your co-host, Dimitri.
I'm Khalid.
And today, in keeping with the season, I suppose.
Yes. Spooky season, spooky topic.
Spooky music, spooky sigils,
yes.
Spooky city, spooky country, really.
It's kind of always spooky season on Subliminal Jihad. I feel like there'll be some equally spooky topics like in March or whatever, but, this is a nice... We're going to have a couple of good ooky spooky episodes for the season.
Yes.
Sure, coming up.
Yes.
And this is one of them.
This is definitely one of them. And I guess we're going to take as our, our vessel into the world of the spooky, much like the Kenneth Anger episode. We're going to dive into the arts again, but this time we're going to dive into is this our first music episode?
I believe so. I believe it is our first music episode. Yeah.
Our first spooky musicology episode, of which there are going to be, I guess we've talked tangentially already about a lot of different genres of music that have sus dimensions to them. Things like 60s psychedelic rock and punk rock and heavy metal music.
Yeah,
and
this is kind of similar almost to sort of the satanic panic era of rock music or like metal music of like Hail Satan type stuff, but on the hip hop side. And we're gonna take a dive right into the heart of, I guess, satanically inspired 90s hip hop, which is in, of course, the city of Memphis. Yes.
And the hearth of, honestly, a lot of blues music, of rock and roll, and of course of 90s Memphis horrorcore, also somewhat known as trap, which is today probably one of the, if not the most dominant sounds in mainstream and kind of fringy hip hop.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, trap isn't really horrorcore because the themes of horrorcore aren't present.
True. I guess it's more in the beat style.
The sound. Yeah, exactly. That's an interesting dimension. Trap is now the ascendant sort of form of hip hop, aesthetics, sonically, sonic aesthetic.
Yeah.
But thematically, the aspects of Memphis horrorcore that really make it distinct, and other horrorcore genres, even Detroit horrorcore, I guess, aren't really present in trap, but it creates an interesting kind of legacy. That's definitely,
Well, a lot of that did get tangled because the most popular group to come out of the 90s Memphis horrorcore scene was 3-6 Mafia, or 666 Mafia, as they were known, and they kind of dropped a certain degree of horrorcore themes from their music throughout the 90s as they started to go bigger, and they kind of, reformulated, and I mean, some people would say refined, but I really think they just kind of made a more radio-friendly version of the type of stuff they were doing on like their first album, Mystic Styles, and kind of putting it more, focusing more on the kind of street life, like gangster kind of stuff, but also like party kind of lyrics and things like that, which kind of became kind of the central, features of trap music as it progressed from there.
The change of the name probably is like the kind of that really sublimates or distills the sort of change that happened, because like 666 Mafia. Yeah, I mean, like, you instantly think 666, three sixes. Whereas with 36 Mafia, it's a little vaguer. Like,
it's a little more subliminal.
I'll admit I'm not like a super, down hip-hop head. I'm not like super, I love, like, a lot of rappers, like a lot of hip-hop artists, but I wasn't really aware of 36 Mafia until, It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp. And when I first, heard of them, the connection between, and obviously I was like a goth teenager, like I was listening to the white equivalent of 36 Mafia for sure, so I would be one to pick up on that, but I didn't really make the association instantly at all.
I think it's like it occurred to me at some point, but I think it's the kind of thing where it didn't hit me right away. I probably became like familiar with them in like the early 2000s, so like not too long before they had their big like Oscar win with Hustle and Flow. But yeah, it was one of those things that could just might make you kind of go, okay, the 3666 Mafia, okay.
Yeah, and I think initially thought 36, like and
I always assumed it was just kind of,
thing. It's kind of area codes or whatever, something like that. That's what I kind of had thought, but
exactly. It's a little bit more almost like secularized and like occulted a little bit and a little more mainstream friendly. It wasn't until it's probably in the early 2010s when trap music started to have this huge breakout and a lot of the articles that we read kind of in reference for this are like all like Vice articles from 2012 literally that are like these like 23-year-old like white Vice journalists like kind of getting turned on to like 90s trap, like older trap music. And I think there's something about the kind of like vintage music head kind of I don't know, the kind of hipster snobbery that I think was parodied in the LCD Sound System song "Losing My Edge," which is just like an obnoxious like Williamsburg guy like rattling off all of the obscure bands and like records that he has. There was a kind of thing where I think there's a certain mystique around the Memphis trap scene because it was so DIY, and maybe in a way it harked back to a lot of these like young journalists like punk upbringing or their goth like underground scene kind of a suburban the stuff that they were into, because it was basically it was kind of not very connected at all to the major labels on the West and East Coast in the 90s, and a lot of these guys were self-producing in Memphis and like producing their own tapes like by 100 or 200 at a time, and like going to local record stores and like convincing the guy to like buy 100 of them. And so they had sometimes they had just these sort of like generic like printed out labels and stuff, but then the cover artwork got very expressive and kind of interesting and kind of almost inspired the kind of mixtape artwork, like the really kind of like harsh just like Photoshop juxtapositions of like a million things on it, and that kind of like bright like style. It kind of popularized that kind of stuff, or it at least like it presaged it in the broader culture. And so I think when people started to discover some of these cassette tapes that also were like extremely obscure because they weren't really put out by a record label, some of these rappers, they're it's not even fully known who their identities were or are, or if they're still alive. Like I think Maniac was one of those artists.
Maniac is someone no one knows who Maniac is.
No, admittedly is that does create quite the mystique.
Yes, for sure.
and so people started, like digitally, capturing these cassette tapes and kind of archiving them on the internet in like the 2010s. And then a lot of people started discovering it that maybe had, never heard it the first time, or they'd only heard the more popularized versions of kind of like Southern rap. But this stuff was like on such a different kind of, a mood palette than a lot of other hip hop, and the style of sampling, the sort of the trap beats, which like structurally they're similar to later 3 6 Mafia music, but like this is all recorded. Most of the stuff's recorded on like 4 tracks with like a clipping like 808 machine, and it's like the quality is like not good, but that actually kind of makes it more interesting. Right. It's extremely lo-fi basically, and it's like these like clipping, heavy bass lines and these little hi-hats, and then one thing they did, instead of kind of sampling from more traditional kind of stuff like a lot of West and East Coast hip hop, sampling like 70s soul and funk and things like that, they were sampling like 70s like horror movie soundtracks that they would find in like the clearance bin. So it had this very like Halloween-y kind of spooky, ethereal, and then like also like classical music compositions on top of that.
One of my favorite albums that we listened to, which apparently was very big for a time, like in 1993, one of my favorite sort of old Memphis albums that we listened to from that very like sort of underground DIY time is the single by a group called Children of the Corn, that only, not to be confused with the one that Cameron was in, but
and Big L, right?
Yeah, this is the one with Lil Grimm, who now is known as Grimm.
Okay.
And I guess that group only existed for about 2 years. But yeah, they actually like, according to Grimm, who produced the album, he sort of actually used like one of those Halloween cassettes that you would play, like to sort of sample for the album. Like, someone goes like, like in the background of like your Halloween party, and like, whoa, But it's a very like, it's like a very chilling, scary album actually. Like it does have that sort of. That was like of the albums that we listened to, that was the one that I felt. Maybe World of the Psycho by Maniac is also like, has that sort of scary vibe, but definitely I thought that one, Children of the Corn, the single, has like that sort of evil feeling to it for sure. But yeah, I think,
they all are, and that goes to say that like basically the other like defining feature of Memphis rap at this time in the 90s was like an almost singular like thematic fixation on horror elements and dark and even like explicitly satanic, demonic kind of themes and characters and aesthetics. That was probably rivaled only by like black metal or something.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean like black metal in like the Norwegian sense, like Norwegian black metal. And people have drawn a lot of parallels between like that, Norwegian black metal being a response to like more kind of mainstream metal, and Memphis Horrorcore being a kind of response to like more clean like G-funk and like boom bop kind of stuff that was on the coasts. But it is, I think it's definitely what served as like the main hook for why I think we want to dive into it on Subliminal Jihad, because you can't have something with this much like explicit devil imagery in it and not make you kind of go, interesting. Like,
well,
what's this all about?
One of the interesting things about it is because like, these tapes are so DIY, being passed around hand to hand, they didn't have like necessarily a clear provenance. They were coming like word of mouth, sort of circulating, like, because of their obscurity, that creates, like you said, a kind of mystique. And certain, legends would circulate around them. The whole idea of, like, as you mentioned, like, Memphis and then Tennessee and then this area of the South is also, like, a big sort of ground of the blues. And, of course, the famous stories of Robert Johnson and actually of Tommy Johnson before him, of having sold their souls to the devil and that type of thing. Yes. There's this sort of mystique. But, I think that these tapes, because like they have like all these sort of really like someone who also, I will say, like, this is another very this is showing my my whiteness in terms of this comment, but someone who I think drew on a lot of these aesthetics and sort of mainstreaming them is Eminem, because the whole like like Kim, his song is very much like like that same sort of thing where there's like screams, like a murder being depicted. Like a lot of these songs kind of have that sort of vibe to them, and so I think that eventually it became like a story that was told, and like who knows like what truth it had, but that there maybe were some real murders that could be heard on these tapes.
Yeah, that was one allegation. There are several allegations about kind of something spooky or sinister going on with some of these tapes that is like taken a few different forms. One of that's maybe more, I would say, in a way, a more easier to wrap my head around kind of manifestation of this, that some of these rappers on these tapes would commit a murder and then later go to the location of that murder and record tracks at the scene in order to capture some of the residual dark energies of the kind of, evil act that was committed. Yeah. And of course, I mean, very hard to prove something like that.
Like some of the screams or sounds you would hear would be like, a snuff tape that's like playing in the background, like anything like that. Yeah. Which is, a common thing with this type of, like, it can be used as a marketing tactic. Like, now we see these found footage horror movies that circulate where this kind of, like, the appeal is, like, to kind of have this sort of idea that this is, like, we're watching some kind of, like, paranormal snuff film or whatever. And, like, with this, it's actually more tenable in a way. Because, like, no one knows this tape came from, in the case of Maniac, someone like that. So, yeah,
they're not turning
like,
they're not turning it into a record label or anything for people to like go over it and all that stuff. So it does leave that door open for and of course, like, I think there's also a dimension to it that this is, of course, Memphis, Tennessee, and like you said, there's the old like the Tommy Johnson legend of meeting the devil at the crossroads that had a lot of currency within the genre of blues. But also, Memphis itself in a very real way is, I think even one of its nicknames is like the crossroads of America, or it's often been referred to as that because it is a valuable kind of sort of central trade route, particularly for the early United States when it was expanding west, because it's a very busy port city on the Mississippi River, and also kind of, I think, initially provided a lot of easy access to, like, the kind of the upper Midwest and also to the South and then out further to the West. And it, even to this day, it is, I believe, one of the central hubs of FedEx, and also one of the biggest hubs of the interstate trucking industry.
I want to do an episode about, like, the occult postal service at some point. Like, I feel like there's some stuff there. Anyway, sorry.
And it should be mentioned, of course, it was founded in, I believe, 1819 by three prominent Tennesseans, one of which you will know the name of, and those were John Overton, James Winchester, and future President Andrew Jackson. And they explicitly did name it after the ancient capital in Egypt on the Nile River. And of course, we know for a fact that Andrew Jackson and John Overton were extremely high-ranking Freemasons. And I would assume, it doesn't say it in the limited bio information, James Winchester was an officer in the American Revolutionary War and a general in the War of 1812. But I would venture to guess he was a Freemason as well. So it was, in like Michael Aquino's wildest dreams, this city was founded almost as like a new Memphis for a new Masonic civilization that was going to become a central trading hub. And of course it did. Throughout the 20th century, it grew rapidly as a trade and transportation center.
And even prior to that, prior to the 20th century, it was a transportation center. This is part of its dark history, that it was like a major hub for the trafficking of slaves.
Yeah, it was a major hub for the slave trade in the antebellum South.
Mm-hmm. And so like also mirroring the sort of ancient capital of Egypt for sure, but in another way, in addition to being on the Nile and on the border of Tennessee and Arkansas. But anyway,
It was captured at the outset of the Civil War, though, and was only briefly a Confederate stronghold. And I guess Fort Pickering was used to control the Mississippi River area. But actually, future founder of the Ku Klux Klan, General Nathan Bedford Forrest, who I believe, it's rumored co-founded the KKK with Freemason Albert Pike, harassed Union forces in the area throughout the war.
Yes.
So,
yeah, and of course also, Martin Luther King was killed there. At Mason Temple, which is a Christian church, I guess, but it's called Mason Temple.
Or was it adjacent? He was killed at the Lorraine Motel, but was that like next to the Mason Temple?
Oh yeah, sorry. It was the day after he gave his speech.
Oh, okay,
there.
okay.
Yeah,
gotcha. And I think we should do an episode on the assassination of MLK at one point. I think of all the 60s assassinations, his in some ways is almost the easiest to, I think, cast doubt on, especially because of the fact that the shooter did not die immediately afterwards, but James Earl Ray strenuously denied that he. I think he was. It appears that he was set up to be there and be the fall guy, but there was an HBO mock trial in the early 90s that I've never been able to find on the internet ever again, that tried to recharge James Earl Ray with the crime and present all the evidence, and the jury acquitted him. And in fact, Martin Luther King's entire family visited him in jail some years ago before he died, and came away absolutely convinced that this guy had nothing to do with it. And there's been a lot of rumors that the sort of Dixie Mafia and maybe a unit of Army intelligence were there and did the job. So it has that dark history hanging over it, as well as kind of where the greatest head of the civil rights movement was assassinated by dark forces. There was also a rumor that one of the head surgeons at the Memphis hospital where Martin Luther King was taken was secretly a Klansman or connected to the Dixie Mafia, and actually smothered Martin Luther King on the operating table because he was not dead. Yeah, and I think there was a nurse who was there who witnessed this and spoke about it in some recent years before her death. I think that's somewhat anecdotal, but it was basically all these good old boys in the operating room. They actually could have saved him, but they were there to make sure that he did not leave Memphis alive. And of course, later in the 20th century, something that that connects directly to our previous episode about the CIA, crack cocaine, all that good stuff, and how it spread across the country. Memphis was one of the places that got hit extremely hard, once crack started to spread, mostly to black communities, all around the nation. And by the early 90s, I believe that it was in the top 5 murder rates in the entire country, Memphis, Tennessee. So it was extremely beset by the crack trade, by crime, by aggressive policing, the same dynamics that we saw going on everywhere else at the time, and of course was a huge inspiration and a kind of fuel to certain genres of gangster rap that started to really take hold in the late 80s, kind of starting with NWA, but by the early 90s you had kind of gangster rappers were topping the charts, and it was almost becoming the dominant genre of rap music that was directly connected, kind of, I think, to the socioeconomic and even psychological consequences of the crack epidemic and all of the various problems it caused. So I think you have to look at Memphis Horrorcore kind of occurring out of that broader context where these young people that were in Memphis were all of a sudden, they were growing up in a world with extreme amounts of like escalating violence with, gangs and the drug trade and a kind of, like a kind of nihilistic attitude towards the world. And I think, they, in a way, I don't know, I guess you would say maybe they kind of took it another thematic step further than just people wrapping up being in gangs, and kind of almost like reached for something a little bit more like Jungian or elemental or, spiritual about, and cosmic, almost like almost Lovecraftian in a way.
Yeah. In a way, like, I mean, again, it sort of repeats something that's happened in like American popular music before, where like to up the ante or make your music like more compelling or provocative or to catch people's interest, you take it a step further, and it's like, okay, what is more provocative than these stories of like being in a gang or being a criminal? Like, what if you were like a cosmic criminal in a way, like you were worshiping the devil? And I think, like, as part of it is also in a way like environmental, like one sus and spooky thing about Memphis is the giant pyramid that they have, but of course kind of as like an homage to the sort of Egyptian name of the city.
It's extremely sus. Yeah,
that was actually like finished like around the same time. This was like in 1991, I think, was when that building was open to the public, and it was only sort of started in 1998. 1989. I reversed the numbers, but yeah. So like originally they wanted to do like all three three pyramids, like the pyramids of Giza. But anyway, and like there's all sorts of weird stuff involving that pyramid. Like I read that they, like, the sort of architect of the pyramid or the funder, like, hid some kind of crystal skull in there.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did. Like yes, it was placed there by Isaac Tigrit, who was the founder of the Hard Rock Cafe restaurant chain. According to Tigrit, the skull was only one of several crystal and mystical objects placed at the building, though the others had never been found. In a blog post, Jones, I guess, who's Tom Jones, a consultant with Smart City Consulting in Memphis, this guy Jones, who I guess was consulting on the building, describes Tigrit reaction to the removal of the crystal skull. "You don't have any idea what you have done," he quotes Tigrit as saying, while going on to claim that the cosmic balance of the earth may have been disrupted by the removal of the skull. Yes, and apparently city and county officials were told that the skull had actually materialized in the hands of Mr. Tigrit's guru. He denies, for what it's worth, Tigrit denies that, that he sort of said this, although he didn't deny placing the skull and other mystical items. And he said that was all part of the glamour and mystery and mysticism of Egypt. He's quoted as saying in the New York Times.
Yikes. I just found something here that is absolutely making my head spin, because I was just thinking this morning about the crystal skull placed in there, and I was walking around this morning and I saw an ad for Crystal Skull vodka. And I don't know, maybe some people won't remember this, but I remember in kind of earlier, like Web 2.0, one of the great viral moments was the bizarre infomercial that Dan Aykroyd did for Crystal Skull Vodka, where he started going off on this whole like tangent about like UFOs and like ancient Aztec like magical goblets, and how he was like showing off a crystal skull. Maybe it was the same crystal skull as in the Memphis pyramid, that he claimed was like discovered and had magical powers, and so Crystal Skull vodka was modeled after that skull, and drinking the vodka would kind of, I don't know, like give you some kind of residual kind of, it kind of embodied the magical powers of the original Crystal Skull.
Yeah, I wonder if I don't know if it was the same skull. I mean, Crystal Skull is like our whole thing.
Yeah. Well,
but-
here's the thing that made my head spin though, because I just looked up Isaac Tigritt, who was born in Jackson, Tennessee, and founded the Hard Rock Cafe. But I see right here that in 1992, Tigritt started the House of Blues with partner Dan Aykroyd.
Wow, that makes sense.
On top of that, Harvard University was an initial investor in the business, and a prototype was opened in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Soon after, Disney and Andrew Filipowski invested in the venture. And let me see. I guess Andrew Filipowski is like a tech investment entrepreneur guy. But Tigritt also launched in the late 90s the Spirit Channel, an enterprise offering services related to spirituality and health throughout the internet, traditional media, and physical locations. The venture failed to take off. Tigritt launched yet another new venture in 2004, the Bozo Project, focusing on the restaurant business. Tigritt was influenced by his guru, Satya Sai Baba. In the BBC documentary The Secret Swami, Tigritt stated that he believed that there was truth to the rumors of Sai Baba's actions of pedophilia and sexual abuse towards some of his young male followers. He also stated that his such behavior would not change his belief in Sai Baba.
Huh.
Ooh, okay.
Cool.
All right. Gonna add Satya Sai Baba to was he wasn't a Maharishi guy, was he? No,
I
just
think
another.
If the Maharishis were all about Osho, I feel like there wasn't like room for.
You're right. He was he wore orange as well, but was another one of these gurus. So he is a longtime friend with Dan Aykroyd. I assume he may have given Dan Aykroyd the crystal skull that he did that weird thing on. He's obsessed with like spiritualism and worships this guru who's a pedo. And founded the House of Blues that for some reason Harvard University was the first investor in. What's that all about?
I don't know. I guess it was the Rajneesh who are all about Osho. The Maharishis are different. But anyway, yeah.
Sorry. You're right. It was I was actually thinking of Rajneeshi, but he was neither of those. Wow. Very. I'm just looking at the Sai Baba like Wikipedia article right now. A lot of like bizarre stuff.
Apparently he. Anyway, woof. Whatever.
And the Hard Rock Cafe is legally owned by the Seminole Tribe of Florida. We'll just have to. We'll say that for maybe the Disney episode. It's just there's a lot going on here. This is getting very American Gothic, very fast. I
guess there were all sorts of like problems with this pyramid. Originally, it was supposed to house like a Hard Rock Cafe appropriately. But like the construction was plagued by these problems, and for years it like just stood empty, like this weird empty pyramid in downtown
Memphis. Like the towering hotel in Pyongyang that maybe it's finished now, but kind of was like in construction for like 30 years, which also had a pyramidal kind of structure to it. Something about pyramid buildings, maybe. Just they provide a certain trick. I think the Memphis Grizzlies and the University of Memphis basketball team, they like made it a basketball stadium in
they were
the
supposed
90s.
To like be there for a while. I don't know if they ever actually were.
They built a newer, bigger stadium in Memphis, and so all the teams moved. And so after that, they kind of didn't know what to do with it for many years until finally Bass Pro Shops bought it. And I think since like 2015, it is now like one of America's largest fishing superstores.
Interesting, yeah. Apparently they have like a man-made swamp in there, an undersea-themed bowling alley, the tallest freestanding elevator in America. That's interesting. Okay, word.
Wow. It's 32 stories high, which is interesting. You think they would go maybe 33 is like the hidden floor,
because of the
where
foundation. Exactly. Just like how the Washington Monument is 555, but 20% of it's underground. So.
Interesting.
But,
okay, so it's 777.
So I'm off at or 666, or so it's off at 7.
one in the leg, slice the other with a knife. I don't care about spirits haunting me, I still be smoking blunt steep. The other robber grabbed tiptoe, tossed them out the car. They got us stuck between trucks, they done went too damn far. He grabbed tiptoe by the head, put the pistol to his face. I act like I ain't give a damn. Stood still in one place, then I pointed the barrel. He pointed his and told me drop the gun. That's when he messed up tiptoe, broke on his ass and started to run. Now your ass free, I'm gon' cap this fool now, not later. Run over his ass in the steamer turns. Trick me, Jamaica,
Anyway, yeah.
So I mean, so these things are all, this is kind of the maybe, these are some things that are going on in Memphis, and then also, I mean, a thing that maybe some allege has a deeper connection to like Memphis Horrorcore is one of the most famous murder cases of the 90s, which was like the West Memphis 3 murders.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember hearing about this before I even heard of 3-6 Mafia, because this was something that was like kind of a... the West Memphis 3 is interesting because it can refer to like the people who were murdered, because there were 3 like boys who were killed.
Yeah, second graders.
Like the West Memphis 3, as I first heard of them, were actually the accused. The people who were accused of the killing wrongly. And this was kind of like a cause célèbre for like goth teenagers, because they were kind of like being persecuted for seeming to be like kind of maybe like darker alternative kids in this conservative sort of environment.
And that's how it was always. I think there's a pretty famous documentary series on HBO, and I think there was even like a separate documentary maybe also that came out that I think it was called Paradise Lost, and kind of it ended up being, I think, like a trilogy released over the course of like a decade, and it kind of went from at first an exploration into the details of this case and maybe calling into question some of the convictions of the 3 teenage boys who were convicted, and then I think by the third film like really just turned into an all-out like advocacy campaign that was, I think, in part funded by people like Peter Jackson and Johnny Depp, and basically were completely convinced that these 3 boys like had absolutely nothing to do with it, and they were totally innocent. And I think it's often, I think if you ask people maybe who are vaguely familiar with it today, they would say, oh, well, like all their convictions were overturned and they were let go because this was all the product of a satanic panic. This is like one of the last gasps of in 1993 was when these murders happened. Let's see. And basically that like the prejudice of the local authorities against these like gothy teens who maybe dabbled a little bit in like occulty stuff and like heavy metal music, but nothing worse than that, were fingered and like bullied into doing these crimes. But what actually happened is that there was newly produced DNA evidence in 2010. And allegations of potential juror misconduct, and that led prosecutors to negotiate a plea bargain after these kids had, I think, all been sentenced to life in prison. One of them, Damian Eccles, was sentenced to death. Jesse Miskelly was life imprisonment, and Jason Baldwin life imprisonment. And so they basically they entered Alford pleas, which is a specific type of plea deal that basically it allows you to assert your innocence while acknowledging that prosecutors have enough evidence to convict you. So it's kind of like leaving a door open to the charges against you, but also asserting your innocence. And so they were all sentenced to time served and released. And they're like free today, and now like they're, I don't know, it's still it's still held up as this like great, America came together and like stopped these religious prosecutors from,
But do you think that they actually did it? Because I don't know. Like, I feel like maybe it was someone else. There's one guy who kind of is now held up as being the perpetrator, who's sus in his own way. It could be neither of them, but I don't know. I'm not actually like convinced that it was those guys. I think that's kind of what's so like mysterious about the incident is that I feel like it very likely wasn't them.
Here's the interesting thing about that, because I think we could I think maybe the West Memphis 3, I'd like to go back and like watch those documentaries and we could do like a whole kind of breakdown. I know there are other people out there like Ed Opperman, that guy who and some other like conspiracy like radio host kind of people like William Ramsey, who are like very convinced and have been like on this tip for years that all of these guys actually did it. But I wouldn't say that I'm like 100% sold that it was like they did it. But what I will say is that by all accounts, these 3 8-year-old boys were murdered in like a bizarre ritualistic manner. Like their like genitals were cut off and things like that. So what I find a little bit strange, just the vibe I've gotten from kind of like the pro like Free the Memphis 3 type crowd, like the Johnny Depps of the world, is it seems like people got so obsessed with trying to prove the innocence that the question of like, okay, yeah, but like somebody ritually murdered 3 children got like pushed by the wayside, and it kind of like didn't matter anymore. And or also that kind of there was no evidence of satanic activity in these murders because the prosecutors were just blaming these boys for listening to heavy metal. But it seems like, well, that's not the most insane connection to make when these kids were killed in a kind of ritualistic, occultish kind of manner. And some of these kids, especially Damien Eccles, was like apparently obsessed with Aleister Crowley and had talked about...
he's still into magic, I guess.
He still is, yeah. And today he's kind of like, I don't know, in the words of somebody like, I think William Ramsey, he's like throwing it in everybody's faces, like how much into dark magic he is, and being like, hey, I got away with it, and like, constantly posting, I guess, on social media, like kind of, his kind of Crowley, literature and just spooky, like satanic kind of stuff. But everyone just stands him because he was like wrongly accused. But I guess he did tell like a mental health professional, I think before the murders, that, he had recently experimented with ritualistically drinking blood to gain superpowers. Mm-hmm. So like, is it the most ridiculous thing that, I feel like like if you let the kind of, like the psyop that like, the satanic panic was all fake, like wash over you, then basically you're in a position of kind of like you can't take any of it seriously. When you look at this guy, there's no room for considering that maybe this guy was, or I don't know, maybe they were connected to an adult or like another group of people that did it,
but
or something like that.
Ultimately, you can't, like, even if someone like, I don't know about like the blood drinking thing. I mean, if you said that it was somebody else's blood, I mean, it's not like illegal. Like, is it bizarre? Like, is it like weird? Like, yeah, to drink. It's not really illegal to drink like the blood of someone who like consentingly gives you their blood to drink, or to drink your own blood, like, for ritual purposes. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it is like a little bit suspicious of the DNA they found of like those other dudes, like the stepfather of one of the boys being found like in the ligatures used to bind them, and like also a hair from like a friend of the stepfather on a tree stump nearby. I feel like that's like pretty, but like that's like the thing, like that's the thing with the satanic panic, like like you can't necessarily like let it deactivate like any sort of sensitivity to this stuff, or to like even worse, like make it so like you have like these positive feelings towards like Satanism as like this victimized like belief system or whatever, but at the same time, like, I mean, there is an aspect of that where like you know, people do this stuff and it's probably not like good to I mean, you can't like persecute them just for it, not in the United States, I guess, you know. Like as long as their practices don't actually involve anything illegal, even if they're drinking the blood of like other consenting adults, like that technically is okay. It's dangerous in various ways and weird, and like possibly like, you know, your satanic practices will like then eventually like be judged like in a eschatological way, but you know, in terms of like the, you know, temporal order, you know, like that is not sufficient. But yeah, I feel like the emphasis on who didn't do it, it does in a way it does sort of distract from like the question of like who did, and these like very, you know, I think that there's definitely the DNA evidence is suspicious. It could be that there's some other reason for that evidence being there and it isn't either of those people. It's possible, but I don't know, but it's very definitely a very spooky crime, and it is one that has been connected to like the
Memphis rap scene.
Yeah, and the
by some
the sigils or the idea of the murder tapes that these type of murders were somehow recorded in the tapes, or that they were like this kind of evolved into, because of the satanic nature of the stuff or of the lyrics of the music, it kind of evolved into the idea that certain tapes themselves or certain tracks would like in a way through these ritual acts be encoded with like magical power, like and that's like the idea. That's how the Memphis murder tapes kind of evolved into the like what's now the more commonly known term of the Memphis rap sigils, which is the idea they have these sort of like in the magnetic tape of the cassette, you know, there's some kind of like it serves in a way as its own sort of crossroads where these magical energy can kind of congregate. One of the best things to kind of, as like kind of a reference to one of our past episodes, one of the best things that I encountered about one of the best theories I encountered about them was that these sigils point the way to somehow they point the way to Nephilim bases in the Appalachian Mountains.
Wow.
Yes, so
it goes all the way there.
Yeah, there's like, you know, it goes off in all directions, like from the tapes being cursed to them being snuff tapes, or well, from them being snuff tapes to them being cursed to them being like Nephilim maps.
Wow.
Yeah, and that like, you know, these murders have the ley lines and stuff that, you know.
Yeah. So the ley lines thing is something we heard in like one YouTube video where they actually posited that the West Memphis 3 ritual murders, regardless of who may have committed them, were committed by some kind of satanic cult that and they committed them specifically on ancient Indian ley lines that basically reverberated like dark energy from that point outward, and as this one guy says, reverberated throughout rap history by basically influencing I guess that's one of the kind of paranoid mystical takes of this, is that maybe the West Memphis 3 murders triggered some kind of release of dark energy in Memphis that was in a way kind of picked up on by these young rappers. I don't know if you could say in a formal or informal way, but I mean, even if you think about it just in a kind of mass psychological way, okay, if you have these high profile child murders and then you also have the gang violence and the violence of like the crack wave happening all around you, that it just it contributes bad vibes. I think the West Memphis 3 murders probably did to the whole area, and an idea, because I mean the area did kind of have this maybe popular interpretation that some kind of cult was running around, and actually as we will see, one of the biggest rappers from the Memphis scene in the 90s, Koopsta Nika, he made a very interesting conspiracy documentary that is on YouTube, and I think he released it in 2012.
Yeah.
And what was it that he described around that time in 1993? He was with 3 6 Mafia, and they were trying to shoot album cover photos for Mystic Styles, right?
Yeah, they were cruising around, and there was some building. Again, he has a very, I think that the members of 3 6 Mafia did a lot of drugs. And I think that in the diction of Koopstanika, you can kind of see some of the evidence of that. So it's sometimes hard to follow his train of thought. Or really understand what he's getting at, but
it could be his deep Memphis brogue as well.
Kind of. I don't know. I can hear the actual words that he's saying, but I don't know.
It's very rambling and kind of all over the place.
Yeah, he's a little bit scattered, but basically what I could piece together in terms of what he's saying is that there was this building called the factory, or that was some kind of factory. And he went there. He actually told one incident after the other, but in chronological order, what happened was they went there, and they were maybe doing some shooting album covers or whatever for Mystic Styles, and the cops pulled up and said you guys can't be here, get away from here. It was some abandoned building. Then later on they went back and they saw, according to Koopstanika, a cult and robes sort of doing this kind of ritual. He even says something they made us watch them, but doesn't go into further detail. So I don't know who they is, the cult or whatever. But or if somehow he felt compelled to watch, or if his friends were yo, let's stay and watch this, come on. So it's very unclear. But anyway, his takeaway from that is that the police were enforcing the secrecy of this cult, originally. That they weren't just, harassing them in the way that cops want to do, but that they actually were, concerned with people roaming around this building because they were protecting the activities of this cult. And that is when Koopstanika made the connection that there is some kind of cult involvement of people in government and in the the bureaucracy,
rich people, politicians, law enforcement. And I mean, it's fascinating to think about the history of Memphis and how, in a way, that feels absolutely true on some level. That that the things that have certain things that have gone on here, and even the people who founded the city were a bunch of Masons, and a bunch of slave owning Masons.
And I don't doubt. Yeah, and I don't doubt there's some truth to that. I mean, he talks about it's very interesting because he is someone who really emphasized the satanic aspect of 3 6 Mafia, and he kind of almost portrays himself. I think that Lord Infamous also maybe had a role in it. Interestingly, maybe not interestingly, but both he and Lord Infamous are the members of 3 6 Mafia who are now no longer with us. Both
or adjacent to 3 6 Mafia. I mean, there are other people like Lord Infamous is DJ Paul's brother.
But he was also in 3 6 Mafia.
I guess, yeah.
They were both in it. I mean, they eventually, they went their separate ways, and, people came out and had solo careers, and other people stayed kind of associated with 3 6 Mafia for longer, but, Lord Infamous died in 2013, and Koopstanika died in 2015, but anyway, I guess they were sort of the ones who are maybe the bigger architects of the idea of the satanic aspect of it. At least Koopstanika describes himself as being much more hardcore about the satanic aspect than some other members of the group were. Although I think that, even Juicy J was relatively into it. Koopstanika makes a point that, on the cover of Mystic Styles, he is the one who's kind of, on the cross in the picture, Mystic Styles, you can see the the band members, and they're all kind of positioned around this crucifix, and that's Koopstanika's on there. And he actually kind of talks about, kind of relatedly to the constitution of the city and that type of stuff. He talks about how this came out of a hatred that he felt towards God as a young person. In that same documentary, he talks about how he
going
hated
to church.
God. And just he felt his life sucked, and God, hadn't helped him, and he didn't like the idea of this European sort of Jesus and this white European God, which is fair, because like Jesus wasn't like the white person who's depicted as probably in a lot of these churches of Memphis, nor is you know, and I understand why you would not like the idea of Jesus being God, you know, or any human being being God, but yeah, so that led him to kind of embrace more enthusiastically the idea of the devil. He does say, you know, kind of in line with what we were sort of talking about how this is sort of a way to take the gangster rap aesthetic like a step further. He said, you know, I hated God, but not that much. I did it because it was money, and that this is sort of a way to make a note. But he also says some other very sus things, such as that he, you know, felt that he was used by Satan. He says, quote, I think I was used by Satan, and I think he's a bitch. I don't even believe in that motherfucker no more. But, you know, I was used by Satan to get black people. And he says, I was intelligent with it. How you get Satan's name going, you get the kids to like it. So he's like, his whole thing was, I'm going to make black people comfortable with 666. And he sort of, like, you know, their label for a while was hypnotized minds. And this is an idea that he returned to a lot, like in his remarks on this documentary about the New World Order, where he sort of says that he, like, very deliberately tried to sort of repeat 666 and hypnotize people. Put them into kind of like a trance, you know.
And that's even kind of like pointed out in more mainstream kind of, you know, cover like writing or these little like videos you see about like the history of, you know, Memphis Horrorcore, that that the effect is you pretty much have to describe it as like hypnotic in a lot of these songs by the like almost ritualistic like looping of vocal lines and stuff like that. And they even, you know, they were very big about sampling there are certain songs and certain lines that would get like sampled again and again and again in like various different artists, and they kind of, it was a little bit different from maybe how the scenes on the coasts were operating at the time, where it felt like it was just kind of it was a little more like Creative Commons, like you would just take something if it was cool and then people would like reuse it over and over and over again, and like it would get more like kind of murky and full of tape hiss like the more times people sample it. And yeah, it just has, I mean, along with the Halloween melodies that are sampled and the kind of slow plodding like halftime, you know, trap beats that they kind of pioneered, it does create a kind of hypnotic feel when you're listening to it, and a kind of mysterious, you know, this like lo-fi, like where did this music come from, you know, kind of thing. And like a real mystery is cultivated. Yes,
and there's, you know, one of the most famous sort of 3-6 Mafia little stories or legends, and you know, think what you want. I think it's very, like, pretty widely considered to be sort of inaudible or indeterminate what it is, but on their song Stay Fly, you can kind of hear this almost subliminal, like, Lucifer, you're my king, you're my father, sort of repeating. Really? There's debate over what is being said. Like, was this a sample? Some have said it says, tell me why. Some have been saying that it's juicy, you know, which is interesting how juicy kind of sounds. Juicy J, Lucifer, I don't know. But anyway, like... Juicy, But, okay. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, that's a stretch. But, like, you know, it's unclear what is being said, but a common interpretation of it is that on Stay Fly, in the background, you could kind of hear this sort of, you know, little undecipherable, background in the chorus, which is Lucifer, you're my king, you're my father. But anyway, yeah, so there's lots of stuff like that. I mean, one of the songs, one of my favorite songs of the ones that we listened to in preparing for this episode is on, again, like my favorite tape of the ones we listened to, The Children of the Corn, the single. I think the song is called Suffer. And basically what it is about is like it's the story of someone who like has like they actually use the word shaitan in the song literally, but he has like a shaitan in his brain
Because he's being haunted by jinns, which they also say explicitly,
jinns. Yes.
like several times, that like you got to watch out for those jinns. Often can come in the form of a man.
Exactly.
Like
that's a great line. Like, watch out for jinns appearing sometimes in the form of a man. So basically in the song, like the person is kind of driven insane by the sound of the sort of shaitan in the brain, and drives him to commit suicide, and then he wakes up in hell, and he sees all these demons and things like that.
After murdering people.
So
they're driving him to kill, and then to kill himself, and it sounds like, I mean, he references being cursed by these busters. So I think maybe he was cursed by like a rival, by an enemy or a rival gang, perhaps,
or the jinns
a cult.
Busters.
I don't know if the jinns are busters, or if the jinns are kind of sicked on him by some human enemies of his. But either way, he's being tormented by jinns, and shaitan is controlling him, and basically, I mean that's
That's definitely one of the sussest songs. Like, there's like, I mean, that album and a lot of the other albums, like, it's interesting because, it's not just like sort of like Insane Clown Posse stuff where, I mean, I don't really listen to that much Insane Clown Posse, so I can't really say. But a lot of their songs is like
Detroit Horrorcore,
like
they were the other people doing this a lot.
A lot of their songs are like, we're in the carnival, like, here's the juggler. Like, it's not like that, It kind of is a mix of the satanic sort of themes with your typical gangster rap themes. Like, there is a lot about drug dealing, and like, instead of just being like, we're torturing the fundamentalist Christians and the or whatever that they sing about in Insane Clown Posse, like,
slice off your neck, like that kind of stuff. Bloody hatchet.
I mean, it's a lot less cringy in general, but also like one of the big themes that's interesting in this is the masking is like a huge thing.
Oh yeah,
like,
masking up.
I guess
masking up.
Yeah, they're always masking up. I guess that's like still kind of a thing with people like Triple X Tentacion's friend, Ski Mask, who I guess
Ski Mask, the
had to
slump god.
Had to cut ties with him because he said he was going to sacrifice him or whatever, but maybe we could get into some of the more modern stuff down the line. But anyway, so I guess, but like definitely like one of the topoi or like the standard stories in these songs is like the type of crimes you're committing is like breaking and entering and like wearing a mask. One of the, there's actually a song.
Robbing people.
There's two songs, I think, on Children of the Corn, the single, where, like, masking is, like, in the chorus or, like, the reprise. One is, like, called Don't Forget to Grab Your Mask, which I think is really interesting because it has a lot of resonances, like, today. And, like, like, the lyrics go...
but it is it's like a Jason Voorhees hockey mask, right?
Well, it's unclear. I think that it might be like a ski mask or something like that.
I've seen the song pop up on YouTube called Hockey Mask, but it's like the same song. So maybe, I don't know, there are other people, maybe they mislabeled it or something. But the first time I heard it, I was like thinking of this like kid putting on a Jason hockey mask. Well,
definitely, the Jason mask is like a common thing. Like that one album cover you showed me for that song, Low Down on the Sinister, or I guess it's called Hell Has Arisen, is the song, but and I guess it's by Low Down on the Sinister, which I love the comment on that video of they sampled the fire alarm because it really does kind of sound like that, but
it's really kind of jarring.
But on the cover of that tape, I guess they are like wearing the hockey mask, and certainly like and I mean that thing. I remember Eminem's line, if it's not a rapper that I make it as, I'll probably be a rapist in a Jason mask. Like, that like whole thing, is definitely like a common theme. But it's not clear if they're like, wearing ski masks. I mean, the masks on Mystic Styles are different. And some of them are kind of those more like conventional sort of ski masks that you would use to commit crimes. But anyway, so, but the lyrics of the song, they actually kind of do refer to the sort of, alleged epidemic that some will dispute is an epidemic, but saying the lyrics go I was thinking before we started recording this episode that I'm really setting myself up to sound like Ben Shapiro, you know, just being like wet ass P word as I read some of these lyrics. But anyway, I'm just gonna go for it. So Colombians coming from overseas, there's plenty of G's, thousands of G's. That is how you make your money fast. For your health, protect yourself, and don't forget to grab your mask. Don't forget to grab your mask. Stay protected, unexpected. That is how your ass gone last. So, you know, there's this aspect of like, yeah, exactly. It's interesting. There's this aspect of protection as well. Like, don't forget to grab your mask so you'll protect yourself for your health. You know, like maybe in the process of committing a crime, you won't be identified, but like it resonates very interestingly like today. Yeah. It hits different, you know, in this current climate. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I feel like are kind of prescient in some of these songs, like in World of the Psycho by the Mysterious Maniac. There's one sort of song, I forget what the title is, but you know, it's best appreciated as an album anyway. There's one sort of vignette where he talks about like going to a mall with an Uzi and just like shooting into the crowd, which I feel like is very much, you know,
mass shooter, MK,
mass shooter. An early kind of incarnation, like not something that like NWA was really rapping about. Like, you know, they were usually targeting people who like kind of deserved it, or
or it was done in a kind of like a playful, almost like sometimes comedic, but all like a comedic bravado of like, I'm ruthless. When I spot a sucker, I kill him. You know, it's just like, okay, easy, like, and you know, but not kind of like this like mass murder fantasy. Like,
I mean, there is definitely like still a playful element to it, which I think is true of like, you know, any of this stuff. Like, there's
definitely. I mean, like, Juicy J, like, definitely. I feel like they kind of amped up the playful side of what they were doing later on when they got bigger. And you know, Juicy J still dropped a lot of kind of the persona in the 2010s where he was just popping like Xanny bars and getting lean in like a really dangerous fatal combination. It's still like his lines about, you know, like you know, and I had nothing to eat but some edibles, or, you know, like, you say no to drugs, Juicy J can't. He lives in a liquor store.
50 pills in a party bag, swag.
2 zips and a double cup. I'm getting high as fuck. You know, and just like his ability to turn a phrase much, like that.
Yeah, cry for help. 100%. Yeah, but I guess he's now trying to lay off those Xanax. I wish him the best of luck. You know.
As do I. And I hope he's gotten away from Shaitan.
I hope so as well. But yeah, like, but I think, you know, like, in terms of like the playfulness, like that's kind of, and in the sort of murder rap stuff, like, that's part of it, because like the thing of like, you know, the Maniac album World of a Psycho, like it's about being a psycho. Like the whole point is like to these people, and this kind of, it goes back to some of the stuff we talked about with like mockery or like the clowning aspect of it, like, you know, that's part of masking, that's part of all this stuff, like that's you know, the Mardi Gras sort of spirit, like, and things like that, you know, like I mean, a psycho, like to them it is a joke, you know, it is funny to be like, ha ha ha, like I'm fucking, you know, like the evil laughter,
kind of impish, you know?
Yes, exactly.
But you know, they do. I'm just quoting here a little bit from their debut album in 1995, Mystic Styles, where Lord Infamous says, "Mystic Styles, the ancient mutilations, torture chambers filled with corpses in my basement. Feel the wrath of the fucking devil nation. 3-6 Mafia, creation of Satan." And that leads into a verse where Gangsta Boo calls herself, quote, the devil's daughter, and describes stalking the streets of Memphis in a Jason mask. So, you know, they're really like enthusiastically kind of embracing this sort of especially really in that gruesome
song. Right, I remember, like, the moon is full and all I see is 66 in the sky. I think they talk about, like, smoking a blunt, like, that's a demonic blunt or something like that. Like, I forget. Oh, yes, roll up your tombstone, smoke a blunt of death. That's what Juicy J says. Sometimes you just gotta smoke a blunt of death. That's another, like, aspect of this stuff is just, like, I mean, it's common, but, like, there's a lot of, like, you know, like extreme like drug use, like, and just weed is like ubiquitous, like they're always stoned, which is you know, interesting, like, you know, in terms of like the trance aspect, like the entheogenic sort of properties weed. Like, you know, it's
almost, it's not quite,
yeah.
you know, on the level of LSD rap, though. I think later Juicy J would definitely probably rap about like eating shrooms and taking acid, and I feel like that trickled into kind of like gangster rap after a while, but it is kind of a premonition of flirt. I mean, lots of rap was about smoking weed, but they were kind of about like getting really, really high and yeah, like almost entering a trance state, or I guess you could say like a dissociative state, which would also make sense that I think a lot of this music does sound kind of like dissociated from like ubiquitous trauma.
Yeah, there's this one song on HOH, which I guess is Hall of Hell is what it stands for, Living in a Casket, that just like has this like incessant chorus that's just like smoking weed, getting high. Like, I only listened to it once, but like it was so common that like I can remember it exactly. It's quite like hard to like, you know, as someone who like has smoked a lot of weed in his life and now is like trying to smoke no weed, it's you know, like very hard to like listen to like any of this music and not be like, damn, like, you know, fiending like for, or the, you know, or nostalgic for weed in that way. So
of
yeah,
course, I mean,
like,
this type of stuff is
yeah.
the soundtrack, and so it is kind of, you know, the best music to listen to when you smoke. I mean, it's just like how, you know, psychedelic rock is like, I mean, you could disagree, but like, you know, it seems, you know, it's tailor made for that type of experience, or how, you know, certain types of electronic music go well with MDMA and et cetera, and, you know, disco is great with cocaine, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like the drugs that are fueling the creation of the music, often it does create that strange kind of relationship of enhancement, and kind of works like it's almost a little like magic in a way.
Exactly. Yeah,
or like, you know, if you just want to drink a lot of beer and like listen to the Dropkick Murphys, that works too, you know.
I guess, yeah, like, well, yeah, no, and I feel like yeah, there is like a ritualistic aspect to it, like a you know, an aspect, yeah, like
consciousness modification, even in like a subtle way.
And it plays like a huge, it's a very prominent place. Hopefully, you know, like maybe people will listen to some of the albums, and you can kind
I'll definitely
see,
put
like,
a lot of these in. I'll probably put more interludes than normal in this episode, so people can get a little bit
fair
of
enough.
a
Yeah,
taste.
exactly. You should definitely do so. But
Suicidal, schizophrenic, nigga, evil ways. My mind is like a puzzle in them nascent in the days. Foster, please, you feel me? It's the tens, make me have them thoughts. Voices scream up in my mind, telling me the devil fought to another chapter. I ain't no gangster, but a wicked crook. Late at night, I'm scared to dreams. Ends have a nigga's fruit, but you niggas still won't understand. In the mind of a crazy man, I ain't hit no bump, but the skunk be heavy days in the damn trend. On a mission, reason hope that the devil won't take my soul. And I'm flowing constantly, make me wanna be ice cold, but I try to stay real calm. Hearing voice of same song, snatch his soul and leave him dry, leave him dead with the fly. God, please excuse me while I'm cursed by these busters. Sins made a nigga kill, now I got to suffer.
The room, if you can't deal with torture, open your mind, let them thoughts, they will scorch ya. Footsteps, you in the dark, fingerprints on the unseen. Dealing with corruption, punishment is the guillotine. Pushing it on the blade, now watch your ass feel tense. Sharp points, go into your skull and chop your common sense. Thinking for a minute, man, your mind is polluted. Satan in your head, telling you gon' shoot it. Now there you go, you taking your own life and shit. Now watch you split as you enter the lowest pit. Watching people doing acts of self-mutilation, transforming into demons, reincarnation. Little grab intelligence,
watch out for teens,
appearing sometimes in the form of a man. Now you ask yourself, my nigga, what is voodoo? Your wisdom genes playing tricks on
buster. In the dark, I'm scared, now the chance make me suffer.
Actually, interestingly enough about Mystic Styles, which is, definitely, it's a good album in general, and it's a good song on that album that definitely highlights the sort of satanic themes of the early 3-6 Mafia stuff. But one of the guys in that group, Play a Fly, he actually, speaking of kind of the mention of shaitan and jinns, I guess he was actually raised by a Muslim father, and his real name is Ibn Young. Wow. His first name is Ibn. And I guess eventually he broke with, 3-6 Mafia, and he ended up writing like a diss song of them called like Triple Bitch Mafia. I guess he moved more towards like kind of conscious rap and like trying to get close to God, I guess, similar to one guy who I guess was in HOH, the previously mentioned band Hall of Hell. That's like, often pointed to as being, interestingly, like 3-6 Mafia itself, even though they're like the archetypal and most famous Memphis horrorcore artists, they're not people who are pointed to as like being one of the tapes that might have these sigils on them, or actually depicting real murders. Like, in fact, like in that song Triple Bitch Mafia, Play a Fly kind of calls them out for like talking up a lot like what they do, even though I'm sure there is like truth to some of it. I'm sure they did do a lot of cocaine and smoke a lot of weed, but there is one memorable verse where he says that like he cheaped like a mega blunt with Juicy J, and Juicy J almost died or something. Like, wow. So just trying to say he doesn't smoke as much weed as he claims. But on HOH, one of the guys from HOH who's living in a casket is sometimes thought of as being one of these sigils or murder tapes. One of the members, Kevin Whitaker, I guess eventually became a pastor, and now is one. He was like a witness in some kind of murder case. I'll link it in the workflow for the Alwara people. He and that identified him as a member of HOH. It's very hard to like associate any individual with these bands, but it just happened to come out in this in this sort of affidavit, I guess, where it mentions that he was an HOH.
I just want to point out, because I see here on a Fader interview from some years back where they interviewed Play a Fly, and he said, Memphis is a dark city. There's always been a dark cloud over the city. They killed the symbol for peace here. I love that he nonchalantly says, they killed the symbol for peace, because it wasn't just one guy. And it almost sounds like, I wonder if there's like a King Kill 33, like 9/11 is mass ritual take on like killing, bringing him to like the Mason church and then like killing him at the Lorraine Motel the next day, and some kind of weird thing like that. But
that was an interesting interview because, you highlighted this, which would also jumped out at me from that interview, where the interviewer asked him, like, are you a Satanist? And he says, I get that from time to time. When people ask me if I'm into Satan, I usually hold them down and carve an upside-down 5-point star into their chest.
Silence, nervous laughter.
Nah, I usually just laugh it off because we're far from that. I mean, Juicy's daddy is a preacher, for crying out loud. We grew up in the church. But don't most Satanists grow up in the church? Nah, I'm not into Satan. Matter of fact, I'm finna pray over this beverage right here, if you don't mind. So I guess he prayed
more silence.
Over the
give me your hand. I want you to feel the power. And then they pray over the beverage.
I don't know. That was kind of a weird answer.
It is a weird, I mean, like,
not the best response.
Like, Juicy's daddy is a preacher, for crying out loud, and of course, like, Project Pat is Juicy J's brother, so also like an intermittent member of 3-6 Mafia. And we grew up in the church, but don't most Satanists grow up in the church? Nah, I'm not into Satan. It kind of sounds like he just throws out a little thing there. Like, don't most Satanists grow up in the church? Which is kind of what Koops Danica said when he said, I grew up in the church and saw this like white Jesus and didn't think God was.
Yeah, exactly. He was the most into Satanist dude.
And I think he says like, so I thought like, fuck God, like, and went off and wanted to find the opposite of that.
Yes. There's some similar content or some similar like remark that I almost want to say it was Juicy J who said it, which was kind of like it was something like, I'm not sure who said it. I don't want to blame Juicy J if it wasn't him, but maybe it was. I think he said something that was like, they asked him a similar question, like, let me see, it's in this article about Mystic Styles when it turned like a sort of 25th anniversary write-up, and someone gave this quote. which I think was, it was Juicy. In 2010, Juicy cleared it up for good. We do not worship no devil, man. People ask me that shit every day. There's no way you could have had our success worshiping the devil. So that's like an interesting comment to me, because it's like, like for one, like he's sort of saying like, like we couldn't have had our success. Like that's not really, I mean, not to nitpick one's response, but like to me, that wouldn't be my go-to answer. You know, it would be like, I do not worship the devil, like I believe in like goodness or whatever. You know, I wouldn't be like, it would have gotten in the way of my career. That just like, you know, like for one, like would it have? Like probably not. Like maybe it would have. Like the success that he later had might not have been the same if like, you know, his music stayed thematically rooted in Satanism. But like to say like, the reason why we don't is because then we couldn't have had our success. It's like like
it doesn't quite make sense.
That's a sus answer.
I mean, just to chip away a little more at their like denial that they have anything to do, and this has an interesting tie-in with what we talked about earlier. This is from that AV Club article. It says it's difficult to pinpoint which member of 3-6 Mafia was the ringleader on this quote devil shit, as it's sometimes called, but Lord Infamous, who was obsessed with serial killers and the occult long before he joined Juicy J and Dr. Paul for the first incarnation of 666 Mafia, is a likely candidate. Take The Serial Killers, Portrait of a Serial Killer, the underground tape released by Infamous and DJ Paul in...
I love like those redundant album titles that are like, you know...
and this is on the title track to The Serial Killers, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which I guess is called The Serial Killers, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I don't know. So like on that album, whose title in 1992 is when it was released, keep that in mind, whose title song is about Infamous's homicidal alter ego, the Scarecrow. Quote, little kids go in and play and get lost. 6 days rotten with their heads popped off, he raps in his signature triplet flow. And so interesting that he was obsessed with like serial killers, and then is rapping about like the ritualistic murder of children in 1992, 1 year before the West Memphis 3 murders. I'm not saying that Lord Infamous actually did the West Memphis 3 murder. That is not what I'm implying, but I think it's like, it's kind of fascinating that I guess he was so it just says right there that like he was fascinated with serial killers and the occult even before he teamed up with Juicy J and DJ Paul. And of course, if Lord Infamous is DJ Paul's brother, then like they must have been aware of that to some point. They were rapping with him. And I guess it goes on to say here, like many of all these projects, like Children of the Corn, Tommy Wright III, Al Capone, are just a few of the local acts who embraced horror aesthetics, freely exchanging or stealing, depending on who you ask, beats, hooks, and lyrical themes among themselves in relative isolation. Many of these projects were connected to 3-6 Mafia in one way or another, and all of them use Satan and the devil as metaphors for depression, anxiety, and the stress of life in the city. As Memphis producer and rapper Lil Grim said in 2017, quote, we were just talking about the inside struggle. We were trying to figure out what life was about. We didn't even know what we were doing. We were making music for the hood and trying to heal ourselves. In the song Devil Shit, Grimm's internal struggle is conveyed through a slowed down Isley Brothers sample overlaid with haunted house sound effects, along with lyrics like... It's a good song, actually. Along with lyrics like, get this, brought up in a church, but full of hell is where my mind is at.
Yes.
So all these guys, I think it's maybe at least thematically not mutually exclusive that you could be brought up in the church, but then find yourself in hell, which I think is a potent metaphor maybe for the life experience of these young people, that were, writing about the environment they were around at that time.
Right, that's the thing. Like, it is in a way like an outlet for rebellion, and like, it's important to clarify, like, we are also like satanic panicky over the like, rock and roll, like heavy metal equivalent of this stuff, which like, so it's like, it's not like, a unique phenomenon, like necessarily, just because like, because where at like, in the normal sense where like if you're sort of suspicious over like this stuff, like it can lead to like ignorance or bigotry or whatever, but there's like also of course a racial component or a sociological component. So like you don't want to like single out this type of like music or expression from the larger like trend of devil worship like in culture, except insofar as it's certainly not like for indictment.
Exactly.
But,
I mean, I'm
like,
just more kind of fascinated in kind of like how these memes like worked their way into the imagination of these young people who were just creating music in a very kind of relatively isolated scene. And in a way, I have a lot. In a lot of ways, I'm kind of like not as sussed out as much by these young kids in Memphis in the 90s, given the environment they were growing up in, kind of using Satanism as kind of a thematic template and a metaphor, than I am about probably a bunch of like really like relatively well-off like white Norwegian kids in the 1980s that were just like, what if we decided to like kill everything and like be Nazis? It's kind of like
the Nazi aspect is another thing, like with black metal, where like there's just straight up like Nazism. That's like a whole other, like,
and it's like their torment is that they're like not living in the Reich that their like grandfathers fought for or something like that. Like it's like harder to kind of like, I don't know, and their embrace of it seems to be much more like instead of, whereas like maybe a lot of Memphis raps is like more kind of descriptive of like the state of mind that they are caught in, and it's a way of like kind of allegorizing their inner psychological experience and like having to confront trauma and chaos and anxiety and depression and hopelessness and all these things, and like seeing violence around you. With these other kids, it's kind of just like a fetish, like a dark fixation on like having power and like destroying, burning everything down. Like,
and I think that on a certain level, like Coops and Nika said something equivalent. In saying like I'm gonna make 666 like acceptable or comfortable for black people. He's kind of recognizing in his thought process that like it was in some way like preceded by like the popularity of 666 in like heavy metal and stuff, like that this was something that was in some way picked up from like the culture. I mean, like this was during like, or at least in the kind of the aftermath of the Satanic Panic, so like in a way like that feeds like playing into it as like a sort of defiance. So
and
like
even like the I imagine that maybe the parts of like Memphis and West Memphis that were kind of most fixated on the West Memphis 3 murders in '93 and were most freaked out were probably like religious white people, I would imagine. Like that was where, and I'm sure they were all over the news, and they're obviously the prosecutors and the police and everybody else, and they're kind of spooked out by. So in a way, I can almost see kind of and kind of tapping into just like how gangster rap taps into the fear of like, ooh, I'm a crazy black gang member, I'm gonna come rob you, and like and kind of embrace it and like lean into it as like a character, as a way to maybe kind of like stake out like your own like autonomy or something like that, or your opposition to these like negative forces in your world.
Definitely,
which would
there's
be, like,
an
the
aspect.
Police and.
Yeah, definitely there's an aspect of that, although I think that there's also like rebellion against like authority structures like within the black community as well, which does tend to be like kind of conservative and religious also.
You're right. Most symbolized by the church. Yeah,
I think that generally speaking, and like of course there's the critique that, and like this is something that is parallel, I think, like in Hotepism by the Nation of Islam, like all sorts of like new religious or like esoteric trends like within black the American black community. I think that like or within black centered like religious movements, the idea that like being Christian is somehow like submissive to white people, or like maybe on it, even in a Christian side, wanting to sort of reclaim that from sort of the white image of it, or the white sort of structures of control. But I think that I think that Coops and Nika's observation, there's some truth to it, and that it like I think that black people, generally speaking, maybe are less comfortable with like satanic stuff. Like I think that the whole thing that you mentioned of like that's just Satanic Panic. That's like more popular among like, you know, urbane whites in a way. Like,
100%,
you know, like
100%.
Yeah, I think
And,
like, you know, yeah, like,
and I think
overall,
just anecdotally, that's something that I've noticed that I think we'll talk about in a second is kind of the prevalence of hip hop artists and rappers, you know, particularly speaking about the music industry being in some way or another controlled by either Satanists or some kind of Illuminati or some kind of secret society of like ultra wealthy, powerful people. And some of the rappers, most prominently Coops da Nicka, rather explicitly subscribe to this kind of theory. But in going just through a cursory YouTube search, it seems that everybody from Nick Cannon to Fat Joe and all of these other rappers have, and you know, even going a little bit further afield to people like maybe Prince, who famously once talked about chemtrails in a TV interview. There really is kind of a, I'm not going to say susceptibility, because I don't think it's like, ooh, they're getting like disinformed or whatever. I think it's maybe a heightened sensitivity to sensing that there are maybe, you know, darker kind of concealed, occulted networks of power that kind of decide what really goes on. Yes. In these things like the entertainment industry, and that the kind of illusion of artists being rich and famous and being totally autonomous and things like that is kind of like this illusion. And what they all talk about, there's so many examples of them talking about, like, you know, instances where they were, you know, asked to like sell their souls or something like that, or do something compromising in order to get favor and get really like the big bump in the industry and stuff like that.
Hell has a reason.
Seems that you don't.
Hell has a reason, nigga. Hell has a reason. Low down is free and on a careless brain.
Should I clown on this nigga to say I'm weak? Leave his ass tied up with his guts hanging in the streets. You better pray, cherish your last breath. I thought you knew that you were face to face with fucking death. I pack a Glock, not a knife, and when I retaliate, it's paid up for your life. 1, 2, 3, 4 niggas got popped out of low. I guess them four didn't know about the crucifixion and all the fucking bodies being found. Demons screaming in my head, low down. Would it stop? Would it come to a cease? For once in my life, I want peace. I know I'm sick, but here's something a little sicker. Raise up off me, nigga. Hell has a risk.
Hell has a reason. Hell has a reason, nigga.
Did you want to go into the remainder of what Coops da Nicka says in his New World Order documentary?
Well, I kind of wanted to say that I think, you know, in a way, kind of relative to what we were talking before the break, I almost find the sort of more successful members of 3-6 Mafia, even though, yeah, you know, it works like as more of like a horror movie premise, like the idea of these like sort of more obscure tapes that have like kind of a maniacs, like, you know, mysterious identity, like who is this person, where does this tape come from? Like in terms of Children of the Corn, you know, thinking of them as like young kids who are doing this to kind of be provocative, like their story is kind of out there, they're doing this for a certain amount of time, even though their album or their, you know, Memphis tape, which is associated with these sigils, you know, their Memphis sigil tape, even though it definitely has like sort of the most sinister feel, I almost feel like that to me it seems a bit more innocuous in terms of its story than like maybe it's just part of people who are more successful, like maybe naturally seem more sus. People who have more power or cachet naturally seem more sus. But it is kind of curious that, you know, the people like who will distance themselves more, like we talked about Juicy J, you know, or DJ Paul to an extent, like the people who distance themselves from the sort of satanic themes or from the horrorcore past of 3-6 Mafia are the ones who are less successful, like Lord Infamous, as you mentioned, who is sort of the driving force behind that. Not only is he not with us anymore, but the group kind of dropped him and that sort of helped their rise in a way. And Koops the Nika, who sort of identified himself as being, you know, another major proponent of the devil shit, you know, he also kind of drifted away, and in his documentary, he kind of complained about his lack of success, and he even sort of attributed it to sort of this common conspiracy topos you'll see come up a lot in terms of kind of these industry-related conspiracy theories. What he sort of suggests, and I think in a way, whoever the interviewer was, I mean, I think that it was kind of Koops's own production, so, you know, not to put too much on the interviewer as an influence here, but it did seem like he was kind of being led to this point. But he kind of suggested that he passed up on an initiation that involved basically having sex with a guy, which, you know, he very strongly said, as you would expect, you know, he would never do, you know, just not, like, off the table, like, no way, like, nothing's worth it, you know. So, but after that, he said his career kind of went, I think in his words, like, do-do-do-do or whatever, you know.
Yeah, with a thumbs down sign, just do-do-do-do-do-do down. He said that, you know, people who had been complimenting him and kind of talking him up a lot and saying, you know, you're the hottest new rapper and everything, basically, he said he couldn't even get a feature on a bigger artist's song after that. And then eventually, I think what happened in the mid-90s was, like, Bone Thugs and Harmony came out, and they were from Cleveland, so not super far away, but they adopted a lot, while they weren't horrorcore, they adopted particularly a lot of, like, the triplet rhyming style of horrorcore rappers like Koops the Nika and Lord Infamous and 666 Mafia, and they rode that to basically a pretty good run of like hit singles and a lot of record sales. They were all over the radio, and I guess you know, he wanted to, like, provide a corrective in the documentary that, like, he didn't hate, like, Bone Thugs and Harmony, but he was a little pissed that basically they were taking his sound and then, like, nobody was attributing it to him for, like, creating it, and, you know, he was getting basically, like, nothing, you know, as a result. Like, nobody was, you know, putting him on as a feature artist, like, you know, there's nobody coming to give him a record deal. It's just like they sort of just jacked his style and, like, didn't attribute it to him, and so he was a little, like, mad about that, but I guess there wasn't very much he could do about it because, you know, but it's these other people went off and became famous and he didn't.
Yeah, and it's interesting how he will talk more openly about, you know, how he was into the devil or whatever, whereas Juicy J will be like, no, like, we're not into Satan, like, how could we be successful if we were into Satan, you know? But obviously he sort of portrays it as being that there was, like, some kind of initiation or whatever, you know. That's his take on it, you know. And
that
who
is
knows,
something
but
I've definitely just in, like, bouncing around the internet over the years, you find a lot of these, like, YouTube videos from, like, radio shows and stuff, you know, sometimes on, like, Sway in the Morning or, like, The Breakfast Club or other, like, Vlad TV, where you have, like, a surprising amount of one talking about how there's kind of, like, devil worship things going on within the music industry, but also even that story of being kind of propositioned by some kind of record industry big shot to do some, like, quote, gay shit.
It's a trope,
it's like I've heard almost this exact same story from other rappers. I couldn't find the video anymore, but I feel like there was another horrorcore group called the Gravediggers from the 90s that had, I think they were from New York, don't hold me to that, but they came out, I think, in 1993 or around then, and I feel like I saw one of them on YouTube years ago kind of explaining, like, a very similar thing and how they, like, turned down, you know, some executive who was kind of, like, propositioning them, and then they got kind of, like, you know, trash canned after that. And, like, didn't go on to be.
It's interesting that RZA was in the Gravediggers.
Was he?
That's crazy.
It's possible that I'm like mixing up my.
No, it is from New York City. Okay. But RZA was in it, which is interesting. The same one of Wu-Tang Clan.
Okay, that is interesting. I wonder why I can't find anything remotely about like the videos about the Gravediggers, like talking about like the Illuminati and stuff like that. I mean, the Illuminati obviously comes up a lot as a kind of shorthand for whatever this this sort of power network is that like actually runs the music industry. And I think in a way, I mean, it has a lot of like metaphor, much like horrorcore itself, it has a lot of metaphorical resonance that basically no matter what kind of vision of like freedom and wealth and power that becoming a famous rapper gives you, there's still like a nefarious cabal of like old white men that are, or some kind of like cabal of super powerful people that secretly run the game, and they're kind of like pathologically obsessed with controlling you. Like they don't actually want you to be free, either financially or creatively. And you know, there's these kind of subtle offers. I mean, I think the way Koopsta Nika describes it is he was in New York, and whatever the other story was, it also happened in New York. But he said something along the lines of, you know, it kind of happened all casual, like somebody kind of, I think he was, maybe he, some record executive invited him back to like went back to his hotel room with him or something. And then, you know, they were like drinking or smoking. And like this was sort of thrown out as like maybe a kind of joke. But like also his sense of it was that the guy was kind of like fishing around and like testing his reaction to see if he would be kind of into that sort of thing. And he was not into it and kind of, you know, shut it down. But it's like he can't quite put it. It's not like they said you have to do this and you'll get a record deal, and if you don't, you won't. But it's like it was a little more liminal than that. But he got this like vibe that basically this was kind of a thing that if he said yes to it or he showed you were kind of down, that you know that would be probably good for your career.
Yeah, he definitely got the sense at least that there was some kind of initiation, like, and that, you know, obviously, like, there's, you know, some, like, homophobia at play in the language in which this is discussed, but, you know, he was basically saying that there are people who do gay things, but they ain't gay, and it's to be part of a brotherhood, you know? So, like, that was his read on it, that basically, you know, he said it in those very clear terms that this was like an initiation into some kind of brotherhood.
Exactly. And I looked up another interview from Vlad TV with Fat Joe from like 8 years ago where a similar topic came up. Not something that he himself had to deal with, but I think there was a controversy about a rapper being outed, and they were kind of asking, like, well, they were saying other rappers were asked, like, would you ever, you know, feature on a song with a openly gay, with a gay rapper, and somebody said, well, like, I probably already have, and like Fat Joe is agreeing with that and saying I probably have too, and like I don't care, like. He's like, why are people hiding it in like 2011? Like, if you're gay, you're gay. It's cool, you know? So he was trying to kind of like push back a little, maybe against some, like, you know, make it clear he wasn't trying to be homophobic. But then he went on to say that he personally believed that there was a gay mafia running the hip hop industry, which is like, I mean, you know, at the risk of sounding problematic, I mean, I think what he was alluding to a similar kind of thing, it sounded like, where he was like, well, you know, he's like, no, I'm not talking about the rappers, I'm talking about like the record executives and the people that run the magazines. And
we're just reporting a widespread belief that's widely espoused. You know, that
I'm not passing judgment either way. Or I can't necessarily say I have the evidence, nor do we have an evidence that there's a satanic...
Simply reporting a widespread belief that's widely espoused. Yes.
Nights I cruise in my Chevrolet, scoping out the houses where those stay. Who don't pay the fence signs to 666. Twice they never make a house call, bitch. Murderers all on my mind. So I grip my plastic now, I'm supposed to only go where my soul send me. Some shit I'm addicted to, man. Straight puts the devil in me. Don't try to authentic. 6 to the third power C. That find your head for selling a motherfucking vending machine. Guns, we point, don't run. It's kinda hard to duck when I start to buck, look, what's up with these fuck ass niggas? I get you slipping, I get the kicking, and then me pulls back, me fucking trigger. Have you yet figured what form I come to destroy you? I'm the DJ, and fool I enjoyed you, but now it's time to cut the shit. You've been tricked, now witness my crucifix. Inside that funk can hypnotize. Dead, a nigga dead, is dead, a nigga dead, is in my
And I mean, maybe we should we talk about maybe like in the last few years though there have been.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's interesting like that Juicy J would say we would never be successful because it's almost now a thing like that. It's increasingly popular to be sort of satanic in some way. Like
absolutely, it's become an aesthetic that is kind of celebrated, and not without controversy, obviously. But I think now that just over the last few years, and I mean, I've noticed this, and of course, anybody that goes and ever checks out like Vigilant Citizen, favorite blog of the pod, that they do cover these kind of rap videos from time to time, and like I have noticed that things have gotten more explicitly dark, and not just in a we're growing up in a place where there are gangs and there's violence or there's drug dealing, but
almost
like
less
cosmically.
Of that. Yeah, like there's actually less emphasis because I feel like a lot of the newer artists maybe have actually like sort of different backgrounds, or like that's something less of an emphasis. There's still some stuff like I need shooters, there's haters, etc. Like I'll cap you. But like it's definitely it's not like it's gangster rap in the same way that the horrorcore music of that era in Memphis is in some way very much still kind of the same sort of like criminal spree vibe of like gangster rap. It's different.
I think that would also like that tracks with the sort of the despite all the talk, in the news about, crime kind of going back up again, and it did go up a little bit again this year, we have seen basically since the early 90s, like a kind of secular decline in, no pun intended, secular decline in murder rates and like violent crime rates for a variety of reasons. And basically it was not, while there is still a lot of crime, there's obviously a lot of poverty, a lot of police brutality, there's still drug dealing, and the kind of, even the popularity of trap has kind of given a new lease in life to like rapping about that trap life, which is, for anybody who doesn't know, that refers to drug dealing, to any of our non-hip-hop head listeners. But, it's like music you play like when you're at the trap house, like, and so those things are still kind of there, but it's not as it's not quite as like front and center, and also that tracks with the mainstreaming of hip hop and rap, like all different kind of flavors of it, and it's kind of intermeshing with like pop music in general, and it's just like it's a dominant, like huge big tent genre of music now. So, but it's interesting as it gets more integrated, and I think it's kind of in contrast to the Memphis horrorcore scene, which like, say whatever you want about like the imagery and the themes, it was kind of a localized kind of DIY, like a small scene. It's not like the record labels like moved into Memphis and like told people to like rap about being satanic or anything like that. Like it was more organic, right. But nowadays you have, you have this whole like this whole hip hop industrial complex that is elevating rappers, and so they might start out on SoundCloud or on YouTube or dropping mixtapes online, but then you have to wonder when one of them gets lifted up to become like a big time star. And it feels like every year there's like a new, 18-year-old rapper that gets popped up, and these people are getting record deals. They are being kind of managed by like music industry people. They're going on big tours. They're like on Spotify. So they're not like marginal. In fact, they're being mainstreamed. And a lot of these young rappers, it's just like it happens again and again. They're rocking like pretty satanic aesthetics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And
Right.
I mean, a few of those that we can, obviously XXXTentacion, who I found was like an interesting rapper back when I don't know, discovered him back in like, 2016 or 2017, whenever that was. And then of course was gunned down in like an attempted robbery. I want to say in 2018 maybe. And
was it really
they're
that
all
long ago?
maybe, or was it 2019?
I mean, it might have been. I really, yeah, it seems.
Yeah.
It seems so.
It feels like forever ago, but I guess he got
2018.
2018. He got into a thing with one of his like frequent friends and collaborators, who I think was like Ski Mask the Slump God, who I think you might have mentioned earlier had to like break off his friendship with
Yeah, there was some
because
weird situation where he seemed to suggest that Triple X Tentacion was going to kill him, like, or sacrifice him.
Him.
Yeah, those exact words.
And of course, he had an upside down cross tattooed on his forehead.
Cool.
And in like a kind of like Charles Manson-y kind of way, and and definitely had, again, it was kind of like, it was almost like for the kind of Zoomer or like young millennial internet age, it was somebody who was, it seemed on some level, was trying to sort of, capture or, express like their depression, their anxiety, their loneliness, their alienation, etc. And like, all of that psychological stuff, and kind of, transmuting it through rapping about like being haunted by demons and...
Right. It's a very different affect in a way. Like, I mean, we were just like during the break, like discussing some of the stuff we were listening to. Saw Baby. It's a very different affect from like Children of the Corn or Maniac. Like, you don't really want to be like in the world of a psycho. There is like some kind of like libidinal feeling to like, this fantasy, and like it can help you like experience some kind of catharsis maybe. Like, people do love stories of killers and like, and things like that, but it's very different from just being like, life's a party, but like also like I'm a Satanist, like 666, like it's weird and different. Yeah,
and
it's
that's
like
what I
weird.
see.
Like,
even Extentacion feels like somebody who, I don't know, like maybe he got sacrificed. Not saying he was, but almost like I felt like he was at the very least. I mean, he was a complicated person and had some pretty bad like domestic violence like charges leveled at him and things like that. And I don't mean to like litigate all that, but I do feel like he was a very creative and kind of independent-minded and all over the place kind of artist who, I think he wasn't just trying to make like trendy, like ethereal, like mumble trap that would hit like a huge audience. He was very kind of like an out there kind of dude. But now I think like the rappers that have kind of like, that might at a distance look similar to him or like in his lane, but have gotten like way bigger and haven't been gunned down in the streets and killed, those people are kind of like what you said, like, oh, I'm so cool and also I'm a Satanist. Like it's that kind of vibe of like they're not, it doesn't feel like they're necessarily like their music is trying to express a kind of real like struggle or anything like that. It's like it just sounds kind of like what's cool, quote unquote, right now. And I think Saw Baby is definitely one of these guys who, I mean, the aesthetics of his videos are like very artsy, like very well shot, but I don't find the music to be, maybe I just haven't listened to enough of him. We noticed he does have a music video song called Trapezoid, which is just kind of interesting. And
yeah, it's very in the song it seems like Trapezoid refers to like a woman with like a large butt. you know, like you know, because like,
okay.
but still, you know, like the
Well, he also,
title as long as stylizes Travis with an upside down cross. I mean, like. Ultimately, I don't care about crosses. Like, you know, in the end of days, like when Isa comes, he's gonna break all the crosses, you know. But I mean, it shows like your allegiance to Satanism. I mean, there's like a lot of funny stuff. Yeah, I just wanted to mention relative to you know, the sort of these tragic deaths at a very young age. Juice World, you know, someone who I think is talented, but like, you know, it's definitely a different aesthetic. You know, he does talk about drugs, you know, but it's like very, you know, it's not like that brutal, desperate existence of like this guy who's going out in a ski mask to like break and enter and like or like murder people. You know, it's like I'm sad, you know, maybe I'm doing a lot of oxycodone, but like there's also the stuff of like 999 or whatever, which I guess is supposed to be like, oh, it's positivity because it's
was
like
he a
flipping
999 guy?
Yeah, well, his first album, I think, or like one of his early big ones was called Juice World 999.
Wow. Interesting.
And, you know, he also made a very controversial, I guess, Snapchat or Instagram post. I think Instagram probably was Snapchat. I'm like a million years old. But, you know, that was like, oh, I'm like, you know, it has a picture of some kind of weird, like, ritual, like, you know, or like candle assembly, like on a beach or something. And he was like, I'm selling my soul now to the Illuminati. You know,
yeah,
and
that honestly, I mean, I feel like some of these rappers out here are a lot like certain dirtbag online leftists, where they're like, "LOL, I'm Illuminati."
Yeah. I think that was
certainly
it was
people
so
like Jay-Z and
doing.
Beyonce are basically do that all the time, where they're like, "I'm Illuminati." Like, you know, they like lean into it now. That I mean, Madonna did a whole song called Illuminati that like we got the whole club bumping like Illuminati or something like that.
Yeah.
And they, you know, I think it is like fat. I mean, that trend that I think we mentioned many episodes back about people like kind of like it's gone from being a thing that, you know, conspiracy prone people might look at on like Vigilant Citizen and be like, why are they using so many butterflies, or like why is there a checkerboard floor, like why are these things seem kind of like, you know, creepy and mind controlly. But now it's kind of like these rappers, it's like they're aware of that from one way or another, and they are leaning into it as a way to like package themselves as like elite, like the best, you know, number one.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I feel like Vigilant Citizen, I mean, I'm not passing, like, you know, I'm not making any assumptions, but I think that Vigilant Citizen is white. But I think definitely the first person who told me about the Illuminati was definitely someone who we mutually knew, like in college, like the one black woman in our program who first told me about like and I feel like that is something that's, you know, popular, like I mean, of course we have like you know, the mind control Black Assassins guy. You know, there's also like a very rich
Prince Ray,
conspiracy culture. Yeah, Prince Ray.
I learned a lot of this kind of stuff like from him. This kind of like, you know, this devil worship and like rap and that, I mean, because you know, I mean, a lot of it is kind of like thrown in your face as an aesthetic.
Yeah,
so it's kind of
like there was that very annoying interview that you sent me with that guy. What was his name? Like, I forget what the name of the guy was, because I never heard of him before. I hope that that's not going to make me appear ignorant of someone who's significant. But it was by the same guy about this sort of secret. Oh, yeah. Gunplay.
Yeah, Gunplay. I don't know about Gunplay either, but he.
So, yeah.
What's the deal with.
Well, it was just interesting how in this interviewer, who was the same guy who interviewed DJ Paul and who, like, randomly mentioned his interview about the secret government in like his interview with DJ Paul, kind of apropos of nothing, like literally out of nowhere. He was like, when I interviewed Gunplay, he talked a lot about the secret government. What do you think about that? I don't know, like, you know, if there's some kind of connection between them that would make him mention that, but he just kind of mentioned it out of nowhere. So we looked into this interview with Gunplay.
Well, and also, by the way, like, DJ Paul's response to that was, man, when it comes to a secret world government, there's no telling.
And this question just came out of the... And in terms of how the interview was written up, this just comes with a clear blue sky, apropos of nothing. Like, nothing that he said prior to that had anything to do with the government, about secrecy, anything. You know, but anyway, so in this, you know, he, I guess this guy had, Gunplay had started a company called the Bilderberg Group. And he said, I'm just starting it from the ground up. And, you know, I hope one day it will be as big as the real Bilderberg Club, or the real Bilderberg Group. And this guy was like, wait, you think the Bilderberg Group is real? And, like, you know, whatever you think about whether they, like, control the world, like, it is real, you know?
It is real. It absolutely exists.
Also, this interview, like, interpolates this, like, bizarre graphic, which is, like, obviously an anti-Semitic picture, like, you know, of... like the United Nations, the Bilderberg Group, Club
like
of Rome,
Trilateral
you know,
Commission, all forming like the Star of David.
Yeah, Star of
and this
David.
guy says
like,
nothing. He says nothing anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I'm sure Gunplay wasn't like, oh, by the way, run this like picture. You know, it's
Make sure you say the Jews are behind it all.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like, you know, they pick that one to make it. You know, so it's kind of like. It's racist, basically.
Honestly,
you know?
it does because I think, you know, not to denigrate this entire group, but oftentimes I see when, like, African Americans are expressing their concerns about certain ideas that might be, you know, judged from afar to be, like, conspiracy theories, there's often a rush to, like, associate it with, like, the Nation of Islam. And, like, oh, well, did you know, like, Farrakhan says things like that and he hates Jews. And, like, granted, like, I think Farrakhan has said some very problematic, definitely some problematic things. About Jews, but like that's not necessarily like this. Not every, you know, black person that brings up like government conspiracies is like getting it straight from Farrakhan.
Exactly. Like a lot of and a lot of the treatment in general of, I mean, it goes back to kind of what we talked about earlier on our Iran-Contra episode about Montel, like his concerns that like this is going to be painted as like one of those crazy black conspiracies, you know, like, and it's the same thing, like, you know, oh, you're being. And it's like one of the, certainly an idea that circulates, like one could say like a stereotype is that black people are anti-Semitic, you know, and like another one is like these crazy conspiracies, and they kind of in some way go together. Yeah,
it's like, interesting that is a thing that gets pulled out whenever people start talking about something that's like a little bit too spicy. They got that card to pull immediately to be like, hold on, like, you know, we value your voice, but not that much, you know, like
and there have been a lot of like it's interesting like that, especially it seems to especially happen to black people, like
I would say most aggressively, and it's like it's like an instant card to like lose respectability from kind of urbane educated whites, you know,
exactly,
to be,
like you know, like exactly, like, you know, there's of course like so much like respect and deference like to the voices of people of color in general, but that is one way to just be like, nope, everything you say is void from now on. Like, you know,
we know these things are actively policed in a variety of like subtle ways, and so I think you know, a lot of people, I mean, I noticed in this one article from okplayer.com called 666 in Inverted Crosses, the evolution of Satan's influence in rap music, you know, it does mention here that that, like, according to a National Pew Research Center's religious landscape study, black people are the leading race in believing in God. They're also leading in the importance religion has in one's life, with 75% stating that it's very important. This is in stark contrast to the percentage of black people who don't believe in God, 2%, and don't believe religion is very important in their lives, 4%. Additionally, 9% of black people are unaffiliated with any religious group. In other words, religion is an integral part of the black identity in the United States, with Christianity being the primary religion practice. So I think that's, like, significant, because I think a lot of the times, a lot of the controversy that I see in, like, YouTube videos here about these young rappers flashing 666 and inverted crosses everywhere is in a way, you know, it is bound to be controversial, where you still have the majority of all ethnic groups in the United States. They are still the most tied to, like, the Christian church, more or less.
Yeah, and so who are, like, sensitive to the idea of, as we kind of mentioned earlier, like, and as kind of Kustanika observed, like, white people comparatively more comfortable with the idea of Satan because they don't believe in the devil as much, you know, demographically, sociologically, you know, they don't take the idea, you know, like, so, you know,
and I think you can say
Satan
that, like,
used him for as part of his propaganda, you know,
exactly, and I think it does kind of come, and, you know, it's like, I think that's like a valuable instinct to have when you're dealing with, like, the music industry, which is one of the most predatory and fucked up industries in the whole entertainment umbrella. I mean, like, none of them are great, but the music industry is almost like uniquely bad in terms of, screwing over talent and like controlling people,
destroying people's lives, young artists, like,
yes.
Absolutely, like, there's millions of stories, like,
and maybe the most purely kind of satanic one that is like basically like, here, you can have the whole world, like the world is yours. And I was just listening to a little bit of Kanye West on Joe Rogan yesterday, and he was going on all these rants about how unfair and how twisted the music industry is, and how basically, they sell you these things that, these perks, basically, about how, like, he was almost talking about how they sell you, like, the psychological high of being able to go on a tour, and, like, all the girls and the parties and having that stadium with just people going, like, every night. But meanwhile, like, the record company is making most of the money, and he says, in a way, it's like you always end up, after a tour, you end up the amount in debt of what you think the house you're gonna buy would cost, which in his case was like $50 million in debt. So it's like, basically whatever the price tag of the big mansion you think you're going to buy when you embark on this record contract, you're going to like end up that much in debt, even though you're going to be like technically, like, you're going to seem rich and famous, but like they basically control you. And I think even his kind of his like passion right now for, like, his like rediscovery of Christianity and like only making music for God is, I think, it's wrapped up in all this stuff a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Like, I think that a lot of, his moves now are a reaction to how he feels he's been treated by a lot of people.
Yes.
And as part of the industry. Yeah.
And of course, how easy is it for all, particularly white liberals, to basically call to like lock him up,
yeah,
like put him in a mental hospital. He needs more meds, like medicate him, medicate him. Just like this crazy black man is running around saying things that you're not that don't fit into a neat box. And like, I don't like agree with a lot of his like takes necessarily, but I do think that he's just like free. He's spitting extemporaneously. Yes. Like, he's kind of doing whatever.
Yeah, and a friend of mine, in discussing this, did make a good point that even the whole thing of, like, oh, he has bipolar, it is fair to say, I think that he does certainly seem to have certain manic behaviors, but I'm not, like, a psychiatrist or, like, qualified to diagnose this at all. And I do think that it's certainly, there are a lot of environmental factors, so to be like, oh, he's crazy, without looking at that at all, or like listening to what he's saying, like, yeah, there is certainly that. That is the thing. Yeah.
Let's see. We talked about like Saw Baby. I guess just to like circle back to him for a second, because he's kind of a big deal now.
Upside down crosses.
He also like Extentacion. He has a upside down cross tattooed on his forehead, and he is a proponent of apparently
There's a hilarious. You should read like the description from that OK Player article or wherever it was from, explaining unknownism.
Yeah.
And yes.
Let me see. I think it's like, Extentacio and Lil Uzi Vert. They got in a fight with Offset from Migos because he issued a kind of like general call. Maybe it was sort of aimed at Saw Baby, and also Lil Uzi Vert, who some people think that is a kind of a modification of Lucifer, Lil Uzi Vert.
Yes.
I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah,
but basically he said
Juice also. I mean, like Juice. Like what? I mean, what exactly does Juice refer to? I feel like I just really should know. But
even the other, I don't know if the rapper.
I'm sure maybe it refers to like lean or something. I don't know. But like, it is interesting how there's a lot of juice circulating, juicy. Juice.
I don't know.
Yeah. But whatever.
But anyways, he.
Yeah.
Offset, kind of he basically posted a video and said rappers need to cool it with like upside down crosses and 666. He said, "Stop that shit, boy. You look lame. All that worship the devil." Yeah, right. He is lame. All that worship the devil shit. Get with God, man. And then Saw Baby, who had just had a big hit with "Pull Up with a Stick," posted back on Instagram. I'm not sure what he's referring to, so I won't read it. But basically, like, you talking about my. He wrote this like phonetically, like you talking about my cross going to stay upside down. You donate $1,000 to Washington, but we'll throw $10,000 in a club. I will beat your ass. Fuck Migos. And then Offset called him an industry pigtail wearing bitch, and kind of went, and then like Lil Uzi Vert just sort of jumped on, and I guess he posted a video where he was drawing upside down crosses all over the screen while smiling and showing off his chain. But then Saw Baby, in kind of reaction to like really set this straight, he posted on Instagram this picture of like a black background with a white upside down cross with a 6 on 3 of the sides, on 3 of the points, so 666, and it says unknownism. And I guess this is a philosophy that Saw Baby created. It said in an article when he was 8 years old, he created this. So just to give you an idea what he says about this, like this image he posted, I created this ideology for seeking the truth. I had this mindset since a young boy. I stand strong behind this and we will kill for it. Book coming soon. Unknownism, accepting the fact of not knowing if all the bullshit they tell us is true. 666, 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons. All caps. This has nothing to do with St. Peter. Unknownism is life. Sorry, we are open-minded and don't follow the wave and believe in bullshit that hasn't been proving. Much love to my unknowns. Hashtag 666 trademark.
Okay.
Yeah, and we looked into it, and apparently he's referring to the element or the isotope
carbon 12.
Carbon 12.
The number of protons. Yeah, and his take on this is actually kind of interesting. Okay, so this is what he says about this. He says that, this is from that OK Player article where it says that this for the 21-year-old, 666 or an inverted cross has nothing to do with Satan but black affirmation. 666, that's 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons. That equals carbon 12. Carbon 12 is, of course, like, we're carbon-based life forms. It's an extremely, like, abundant element, like, very important to life on Earth.
This is actually the dominant carbon, like,
yeah, exactly. Like,
isotope. It's got 98% of carbon is carbon 12. So it does actually make up the matter for, like, most of us and, like, our world is carbon 12.
And Saw Baby says, carbon helps make melanin, so that's the scientific makeup of people of the same skin color as me. So I don't really know I guess this article says that there's no scientific evidence that supports his carbon-12 theory. I mean, it seems like I don't think that there's more carbon in people who have more melanin. I think, like, everyone has a lot of carbon, like, because, so I feel like that, like, is, but that said, like, he says also, like, the inverted cross, that's, Christianity was forced on black people during slavery. And, I think that is in a way, like, it's fair enough, it makes sense. Like, this kind of goes back to some of Koops Nika's comments, where he's sort of, saying, like, this white Jesus, like, that made me, like, drew me towards Satanism or like rebellion. That's a common
sure.
thing I feel like in, you know, in these ideas. It's interesting actually to note what Kupsanika is into now, which is kind of like UFO alien stuff.
Or at least up until his death, right?
Up until his death, or what? Yeah, you're right, exactly. What he was into at the time of his death, or more recently. And he, in his documentary from 2012, he was promoting a song or a sort of tape that he put out called Humans versus Aliens. And there's actually like a titular song, which, you know, he mentions this a lot in the documentary. He has some good quotes like, you know, we got extraterrestrial ass motherfuckers, we got the reptilian motherfuckers. You know, he's mentioning reptilians. He's, you know, saying basically his idea is that these, I don't know where the reptilians or the reptoids fit into all this, but basically, I think maybe the reptoids are bad in his cosmology, but basically the idea is that all these movies about alien invasion are sort of designed to program people to like view aliens negatively, when really aliens like are, you know, they are like the sort of forebears or relatives of black people. Like he calls them his own folks, you know, and he says they're going to send you out against your own folks. And people coming down here, they call them aliens, but those are my own folks. I'm a goddamn alien. So,
so it's kind of a reverse Project Bluebeam.
Exactly. It's the same sort of thing of like reversal, where like you're reversing these sort of hegemonic ideas and sort of associating with like these black elements. I mean, this kind of goes back to like, you know, there's aspects of this even in like Nation of Islam philosophy, you know, like where the idea of like, you know, black is always associated with evil, you know, and darkness, you know, so maybe that should be associated positively. So there's like a
correct
me
if I'm wrong, but isn't
the
etymology that or the term that I feel like Ice Cube used a lot in some of his early 90s albums, like white devil?
Yeah.
Like, didn't that come out of NOI?
Yeah, definitely. Like, the idea of the white or the blue-eyed devil, and like of whiteness as being subsequent to blackness, you know, created by, like, white people are an evil sort of race that was created through magnetism by a brilliant but misguided black scientist named Yakub. You know, he was sort of evil, and so white people are sort of a malformed creation, and black people are the original man in this, you know, in this way.
Yeah, kind of a cosmic inversion of the Urantia book philosophy.
Yeah. It's a permutation of the same thing, you know, exactly, like, white aliens maybe are good, like, you know, it reminds me of kind of something that, from that Ibrahim X. Kendi, who I guess now is like a big figure in kind of the great awakening of white people that's happening in the wake of the George Floyd protests, etc. You know, he even had some quote from his book where he was sort of postulating that white people were evil aliens, you know, so it's like kind of, it's interesting like how these different...
Abraham X. Kendi?
I think he was kind of joking around with it, but yes, he had something like that, you know, where he was like kind of joking around with his friend, like, it's, you know, it explains everything. It's why they don't have any feelings, like, you know, they're aliens, you know, but like,
I mean, honestly, it kind of even, I don't know if you've gotten the chance to watch Lovecraft Country, but I have my issues with it. We'll discuss that at a later date. But the protagonists in it, in addition to all white people in general just being like literally demons, folks, like just like running up on you like every 5 seconds to like do a Jim Crow, to like you just like they're like NPC monsters in like this kind of universe, but also the big villains are like these rich white, probably descendants of slave owners, even though they're like in Massachusetts. Doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. But basically they are like a part of some high priest like satanic mystical order, and they all like use magic and basically are empowered by like, you know, dark evil Cthulhic energies to, you know, which they then use to remain dominant in society. And there's almost kind of like, there's almost a little bit of like essentialism to it. I mean, there's also a whole thing of like, you know, one of the black characters is like related by blood, is blood connected, you know, to this like white family, so therefore he has like special powers, which is kind of weird. You know, I mean, there's just like a lot going on there, but I think you even see that kind of popping out of just kind of like flipping around I guess it's like literally flipping around the cosmic horror of Lovecraft, who was super racist, and was like afraid of like black and brown people.
Yes, and he definitely like usually depicted like, you know, non-Anglo-Saxon races as being like more associated with these sort of demonic activities, or like more prone to worshiping these evil entities and stuff like that. You know, like I remember in the Call of Cthulhu, there's a very racist sort of depiction of voodoo and that type of stuff. So but so there, like, you know, there's something about it that is like but yeah, I wonder in a way how much of this is like instrumental, because like in a way, like, it's understandable. I even understand, like, you know, I'm very opposed to Satan, but I understand how, like, if you find yourself in a difficult situation, whatever it is, like, and, you know, you're in an environment where people are telling you, like, to believe in God, and, like, God created the situation, and God created the world, and you are unhappy with the world or with your life, then it's often the case that people become angry at God or, like, reject their religion, and that's, you know, often a failure of the religious people around them in some way. And, like, you know, it is, you know, you can't really blame, like, them a lot of the time for that, you know, the people in this situation.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do wonder, like, what I am skeptical, like, because I think that these systems, in a way that, like, underscore, like, the problem of racism in American society are, like, you know, in many ways, like, institutional and structural. And I think that people enact their commitments to them, like, without necessarily, like, whatever they mean or believe in their heart, it's much, you know, it's hard to root out the sort of institutional, like, alignment that you're kind of forced into by these, like, deep historical structures. So the whole thing of, like, the piety, like, I wonder what, like, you know, how are the ruling class, like, that is still largely white, how are white people going to ultimately instrumentalize, exploit, and profit from this new thing of, like, white people being, like, you know, cursed demons or whatever, you know, or, like, or, you know, this reclaiming of, like,
I think that's what it is kind of the reclaiming demons. I feel like even the older formulation of white devils is not as useful to them as kind of like I don't know, almost advertising, like, you should become the demon, like, or like, you deserve to be the real demon, or I don't know, like, like
anything, any, like, anti-racist program that's, like, widely adopted and, like, supported by, like, white people, like, I'm, like, somewhat skeptical of, to be honest, like, just
absolutely,
because, like, of that, you know, it's like, not that I think, like, what people believe in their heart, like, is one thing, but, like, there are, like, structural aspects to it. So, like, I think, you know, when it comes to, like, Lovecraft Country and Watchmen and this massive, like, you know, trauma spectacle where, like, all these well-meaning white people tune in and are like, I'm doing something or whatever, you know, like, that to me, I'm very suspicious of. And the same thing of, like, you know, being like, wow, like, you know, saw babies, like, you know, unknownism, where, like, you know, it's an upside down cross or whatever, like, that is, like, a beautiful expression of, like, black liberation and, like, black spirituality. Like, I think
you even see it to
you know,
more
he did come up with it, you know, it's his thing, but I don't know, like,
well, I think you even see that in the aesthetic of some of the, and I mean, I'm almost it almost makes you a little nervous to even say this, but, like, some of Beyonce's videos, especially the kind of post-formation ones, have, you know, there's, like, masons, there's, like, Prince Hall masons in her videos, and kind of, like, a kind of interesting thing where, I remember one of the videos, it's almost like they're at this kind of, like, ghostly, spooky plantation house, like, in the South, and they're all dressed up kind of like, almost like this, like, black antebellum royalty or like aristocracy in a weird way, and it's like I can kind of see like the trying to reclaim the idea of like aristocracy from like the white planter class of like, you know, our history in a way that like feels radical and like new, but it's also I don't know, like embracing Freemasonry, and then like, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'll just leave it there. I mean, I feel like Jay-Z and Illuminati, like wearing his like "Do With That Wilt" hoodie. Like, people know that like, you know, when it comes to talking about like Illuminati or whatever things, that, you know, the Jay-Z and Beyonce have been suspected for a long time of being kind of like embodiments of that in one way or another. But I think that what was really kind of like innovative was like when Beyonce became more about like she became this kind of like woke revolutionary artist around circa 2015 2016, and was like, you know, dancing with these women all dressed up like Black Panthers at the Super Bowl while F-16s flew overhead. I'm sorry, but like, you know, like it seems like there's some recuperation going on there, and like some co-optation of radical aesthetics to give you like the impression that you're rebelling against like white supremacy, but actually like white people are kind of signing the checks on all of this. And like the absolute worst white people, if we can dare to say that, like the people that sit on the boards of these companies and, you know, are millionaires and billionaires and like kind of control what kind of culture comes out, and have still a panoply of excuses to shut down the career of any young talented black artist that is pushing a message that they don't like, right?
Yeah, and that I think that, like, this is, you know, in a way lines up with a lot of the stuff that's been said, like, in many, like, discourses on these subjects, you know, going back to kind of what some of the things that we talked about a little bit in the Iran-Contra episode, where, like, okay, well, you know, on some level, like, some of this music is, like, journalistic, and, like, it's a very, like, you know, skillful and well rendered and effective like expression of like pain or of, you know, a certain, or maybe in some case like a joy or exuberance, like, you know, or it's a celebration of certain things that like you know, deserve maybe celebrate or aren't permitted to be celebrated, or like there's some, you know, there's positive aspect to it, but on one hand, like, you know, there definitely have been people going back to its very inception who have been, you know, people in the more like conscious vein, like you know, Play a Fly, I think eventually sort of became, who have been skeptical of like what this kind of stuff like promotes, and like, you know, is this sort of encouraging these sort of things. I think that like there's far more salient factors in perpetuating like some of these like, you know, negative like institutional phenomena like in like certain communities in America, like, you know, for instance, like, you know, I mean, the CIA like flooding neighborhoods with drugs, like, for instance, you know, like
exactly. I mean, how does that factor into all this? You know?
Structural poverty, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. But like, you know, is it innocuous when like, you know, and like, there's certainly like some level of like these things being popular, like on a ground up level, people observing that and then promoting what they see people respond to. But there also is a level of like, you know, these people who are at a higher level see what, you know, they like certain things, and they make at some point an executive decision of like what to go with,
what to support.
So,
and I think we always do have to be mindful that when they make a decision that we are going to like heavily promote this trend, that I think it's safe to assume that that trend is not going to like undermine capitalism or end white supremacy or like end like the criminal justice like carceral state, or, you know, liberate people like, you know, spiritually and stuff like that. Like, it's not going to change the paradigm.
I certainly don't think that it's I'm just going to come out and say that I don't think that unknownism is a valuable philosophy for anyone to pursue. I mean, the basic idea, I guess, of questioning lots of things is good, but like the whole idea that like, oh, you know, my upside down cross, like, and my 666, like, you know, like pretty, I mean, I guess the upside down cross could actually be Yeah, it could refer to Saint Peter, you know, like because he was crucified upside down.
He was crucified upside down. This, I like how he stresses this has nothing to do with Saint Peter.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
which I think you can take two ways. Is like I'm not trying to insult the memory of Saint Peter by doing it upside down, but also like my philosophy has nothing to do with any of that Christian stuff.
I think he's saying that like because you know the idea of the upside down cross like could be seen as positive if it has to do with Saint Peter like wanting to be crucified upside down. So he's saying like no.
He's almost taking like an Aquino-esque or like a David Mamet-esque kind of approach to saying that like Satanism, like stop trying to define it in opposition to Christianity. It's older than Christianity.
Yeah, well, it is exactly the Aquino thing because it's just like, oh, you know, you think this is satanic, but really like from our point of view, like these things, like Satan is good, you know? So like when you say that this evil thing is satanic, like that's not a satanic view because from the point of view of a Satanist, Satan is good. So calling an evil thing satanic has nothing to do with Satanism, or you know, like that. Like so, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
except
exactly.
It's almost going a step further and saying like, oh, you know, you're taking a Christian lens and seeing like this 666, or like me saying like I worship Satan as being satanic, but that's actually unknownism.
Yeah,
which is like, you know,
and I don't think that really holds up water. And of course, you know, this is a common thing that I think when you see, if you go on YouTube and you look at like, you know, people like in the rap world, like talking about, critiquing this kind of like posture and ones that have maybe a somewhat more quote unquote conspiratorial outlook on like what the industry wants to promote. They see that as like, you know, basically this is like part of a long cultural war that is going on, to like a mind war in a way, to basically like, you know, to divorce like probably like young black audiences from like the church and the things that are, you know, things that are rooted in community and tradition that have like kept people strong and united and stuff like that through various, you know, trials throughout history. And now these like, you know, these billion-dollar record companies are just trying to promote kind of like hedonism, criminality, and not even in a way that's like journalistic, but just kind of like a look, like a pose. And I mean, and you know, you might not believe in unknownism, but apparently Lil Uzi Vert is a convert, as is Trippie Redd, who also rocks a 666 constantly, but said that it was like, you know, a chill nature symbol or whatever.
Not to your fucking skull, a 380 to your back, a deuces between your legs, and now your ass handicapped. I told you your silly dance that you can't fuck with this. I catch your ass slipping, bitch. It's gonna be a murder quick. I'm down with 10 wanted mans. I'm wrapping up off the scene. I'm popping them blocks on hoes. Now I'm ballin' real clean. These niggas be talking trash. You know you can't stay alive. I put the knife to your head. You know that it's time to die. Too late now, trick already. Cock my motherfucking gun, hey, fuck. My Glock make the sound when I bust down clowns. Cock my motherfucking gun, hey, fuck. Too late now, trick already.
But just to that tip, you know, if we want to see like how is unknownism, you know, shaping Lil Uzi Vert's, you know, life and stuff, I found this article from XXL that says Lil Uzi Vert has never shied away from satanic imagery and symbols in his songs and videos, and during a recent concert in London, the Philadelphia rapper took his fans to hell with him. Performing at the 2018 Wireless Festival, Uzi topped the EXO Tour Life instrumental to share a message with his fans, telling concertgoers they have entered the rapture and are all going to hell. Quote, and if nobody flying up to heaven right now, obviously all y'all motherfuckers going to hell right with me, Lil Uzi said. As the song began to play, Uzi continued talking, telling fans they're currently in hell and won't be able to get out. Quote, oh, you were already here, he added. I'm so sorry. You can't get out. You're stuck. It's over. You heard the song 1,000,000 times and you didn't even know. That's fucked up, but I still love you anyway. And Lil Uzi Vert is no stranger to claims of Satanism. In 2017, he released the song 444 plus 222, which equals 666. The rapper has also posted photos of upside-down crosses on his Instagram page. So yeah, he just was like announcing that like everyone is going to hell with him during a concert. And I mean, that doesn't really sound like he's talking about liberation or like, you know, flipping the script on, you know, reclaiming the devil to like, you know, win black liberation or anything like that. It sounds like, you know, he's just reveling in like, blah, like I'm taking you out of hell with me, and like, I don't know. Am I wrong to kind of read it?
No, I think that's yes, very much sus. Yeah. At least, yeah, that's very much in the sort of horrorcore vein, what you described. I was a bit distracted because I was reading this long explanation of unknownism by Sa Baby that he sort of delivered. I just like the whole thing of like 666. Like again, like, you know, the cross. It's not something that I think like is important. In fact, I think like worshiping crosses is bad. But like, you know, he's describing like, you know, this. I used to ask myself, I guess when he was 8, why did whoever created the earth just let stuff like this go on? Why, when I pray or ask for stuff, it never comes to me? Why do kids get raped? Why do hurricanes and earthquakes happen? I decided it's kind of unknown. Slave masters used Christianity to enslave us. The KKK wore the Christian cross, so I make it upside down because I think it's kind of stupid for people of my skin color to wear that. I don't like racism, period. I wanted to bring the world together with some kind of system. I want to create schools and centers. With unknownism, I just want to bring everybody together, the whole world. One of my cousins brought me the perspective that maybe the whole world is a test, so I created my own ideology. It's a secret behind everything. I just wanted to know more, the truth about everything. The 6 protons, 6 electrons, and 6 neutrons. That was some knowledge I got from my uncle. That's carbon, and carbon helps make melanin. It's in everyone. So yeah, that 666 is the number of man. So unknownism, it's really for people of all colors. Everything you learn outside of school, you aren't really going to learn in school. There's a lot of stuff I never knew. I never knew what Benjamin Banneker created the clock. School really doesn't touch on religion either. Things that ended up learning from outside sources, they never really told us. I want to uncover everything, the secrets, the things we don't know. I want to know about Area 51. I was just looking at all these hurricanes that were on the same day. I want to figure out, why's that? A big moment when positivity had an effect on me was when I started uploading snippets of my music and Sandos on Instagram. It really was the fans, you know, music, blah, 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 blah. Musically, I just try to put myself. I like to rap about things I have fun with. Sex is fun to me. People have a good time. I like to sound light. I like the melodies to sound like you're kissing Cupid. I want that motherfucker to sound like heaven. I don't really like dark music. So this is like, yeah, this is very, like, you know, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, where it's like this very different vibe. I don't really like dark music, but like I'm all about 666. Like, you know,
it doesn't.
It's
yeah,
like very
it doesn't quite
weird.
add up.
It's very, very weird. Like, and the whole thing of like, I want to create a world religion. Like, I mean, again, I guess ultimately, like, all religions, like, kind of, like, or at least all universal religions have, like, some kind of, like, idea of, like, universal religion, you know, a world religion, like, in them, you know, something that is open to everybody, but I don't know. It's just weird. It's weird. I don't like it at all. And
it's a constant kind of thing of, like, you know, it's like, you know, putting all of these like dark symbols like in your face and then being like, why are you being like freaked out by this? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, how
I'm
dare
just all about
you,
positivity.
like,
I mean, that's
yeah,
the same
like,
thing, to be fair, you know, that's the same thing that probably like Ozzy Osbourne said on the Geraldo special, what like every heavy metal band said, what every like fashy hardcore punk band used to say, of like, man, we're just about like energy and positivity, man. Like,
this
we're
is
not
a little
about
bit,
like trying to hate anybody.
This is a little bit different, though, because, yeah, while it is really the same, like, ultimately, and I'm not saying that, like, you know, that, like, what, you know, again, like, it's important not to single, like, the stuff out. We're talking about hip-hop because, like, you know, or to make this, like, appear that it's in some way, like, inherently more sinister than all the sinister things that white people do. Not remotely true. Yeah. However, I do find this to be a bit different than the sort of satanic aesthetic of heavy metal, because they, in a way, are like, you know, hail Satan. They're very explicitly satanic, and they might say, and they do say a lot of the time, like, oh, you know, it's just like for fun, it's just like an act of defiance, it represents something else. This is almost another level where it's like, you know, the 666 doesn't mean like what 666 like means to everybody. Like, the upside down cross doesn't mean like what it signifies to like the vast majority of people. It's like actually unknownism, and like it's not even dark, you know. At least I think that most like people who make music like worshiping Satan, they would say like, yeah, it's dark music. It's fun, like, because it's dark, it's violent, but it's just a fantasy. Whereas he's like, I want it to sound like heaven, like you're kissing Cupid. Like, I don't really like dark music. Just like if you watch scary movies, they can put your whole mind in a different place. So, like, if he believes in the power to, like, of scary movies to put your mind in a dark place, like, what about, like, talking
spooky
about
music.
666,
or like a spooky aesthetic.
Or, like, I don't, like, lighter, colorful stuff, like, it's weird, because it's, like, different. It's, like, like, lovey, cuddly, like, but also 666, and, like, the cross is upside down, like, whatever, like.
I mean, I think you could see that. I think, I forget who it was with. I forget who I was watching. If it was like Fat Joe who said this. Oh yeah, Fat Joe did say this. I think where he was talking about how Lady Gaga, like he had mentioned Lady Gaga. Like running with the gay stuff and how it was working really well for her in 2011. That's kind of I'm gonna put that to the side, but it reminded me of how Lady Gaga also uses a lot of like gross out like Marina Abramovich like shock kind of fashion and aesthetic, but like is not like, oh, I'm about like love and being brave and being yourself, and like kind of it's a very aspirational kind of positive thing, but then like it's like she's wearing a meat dress and you're like, huh.
Well, my thing for Saw Baby is like, what about Islam? Like, his name is Sahim Malik Valderi. So like, come on, like, what about Islam? Like,
you just
if you
want
don't
him
like
to revert.
Well, I think that might be an interesting decision for him, or like, a positive choice, because he doesn't seem to be into Satanism or the devil, necessarily. He doesn't like Christianity. Understandable. Like, I think that, there's a reason. And 10% of slaves who were brought to America were Muslim. Okay. Originally, of course, you say, Arab colonialism, but we can talk about it a different time. But anyway,
maybe there's hope for Saw Baby. Maybe there's hope for Saw Baby to kind of,
Well, it's weird he's never mentioned it at all.
I know it is weird.
Like,
that,
like, think if he's really truly interested in exploring things. I feel like what's really unknown to him is, interestingly enough, like anything about like Islam, because like. If you're against Christianity, just don't wear a cross at all. Just take off your cross. Just crush it.
Why
do you have to embrace the Antichrist?
He wasn't. Like, if he wasn't raised in a church, I don't know if he was raised in a church or not. But like, if he wasn't, it kind of makes this like, why even kind of mess with the cross at all? Like,
and it's not on. Well, I don't know if he was raised in a church or not, because like sometimes these Islamic names, like they are, they not necessarily reflects a Muslim family, but so it's possible that he wasn't raised Muslim. But I just like I just feel like if it's it's unknown, like all this stuff, like I just feel like why it's not really unknownism, because you're just kind of embracing the devil, like in a way, like it is known, like, or at least it's anticipated by people as known. I find it to be, it's sus to me.
Just listen to Lord Infamous or 666 Mafia, listen to the Smoked Out Loked Out mixtape, and you'll know all about the devil. Or you'll learn all about him and his wicked vibes and stuff. It is a kind of a strange phenomenon. And I'm almost surprised he doesn't say what every other, like so many other rappers like DJ Paul and stuff have said. I saw another interview with Tech N9ne real briefly, where I think he was talking to Sway, and somebody brought up something about Jim Morrison, and like Sway's co-host was like, I never messed with Jim Morrison because I heard he was a devil worshiper, and Tech N9ne was like, I guess he'd sampled The Doors or something, and was like, no, that's not true. And they're like, well, like, where's that come from? And he's like, well, he married a woman who was like kind of a witch, and like they got married in the ceremony where they cut their fingers and like did a blood pact and stuff, but like he wasn't a devil worshiper. And Sway was like, what? Like, wait, what did he do? And he's like, yeah, man, he was just like, he's just like probably going along with this girl because like she was like this sexy woman and stuff, and Sway and like the other woman are like, was he trying to create like a devil child or something like that, like like a Babylon working kind of thing? And And then, and then they asked, like, well, what about you, Tech Nine? Because, like, you often, rap. He's also kind of a horrorcore rapper who, I definitely enjoyed in my youth. Even though I think he's from Kansas City, Missouri. But they asked him, like, well, you've kind of used, like, devil horrorcore themes in your music. Like, how do you feel about devil worship? And he said, just like DJ Paul, he's like, man, I was raised in the church. Like, what? Like, nah, like, I'm not a devil worshiper. I just happen to, sometimes, like, it's an interesting, like, theme to kind of, like, work with. And then he kind of cryptically at the very end of the video says, and, sometimes I do a lot of drugs. And, sometimes when I do drugs, I do really crazy stuff. And then just kind of like that was the end of the video.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, oh, well, like when he's on drugs, he experiments with like devil worship, but he's like not really a Satanist. I don't know. I feel like maybe with a lot of this stuff is, and maybe this is like the nature of like repping the devil, is that I think a lot of people, you kept mentioning like what people really feel in their hearts. And I do feel that like maybe, I don't know, maybe some of these people had like a deeper, like, the kind of dark fascination with like devil stuff, but I feel like maybe some of these people really do feel like, like the devil is the master of like deception and like deceit.
Yes.
Like he tricks you into, that's his main game, is like, or even just as a sort of a concept or whatever. Like he is the great deceiver, and so like he will get people like wearing 666 who like don't think that's what it represents, and they think it represents actually like rebelling against like the corruption of Christianity or like the image of the white Jesus. So then they want to embrace like an upside down cross or something, but then you have to ask yourself, like, well, when you're putting this imagery out into the world, like, what is that? How do people interpret it? What is like the impact on like a mass psychological level? And it's I would venture to say that like, while again, like we don't want to gang up on like one genre of music when there are so many predominantly white genres of music that have done this like just as much, if not more, excessively.
What's interesting about this one is, for one, like the sort of spoopy conspiracy theories around the sigils, and like I think that the Memphis like horrorcore music is good personally. Like I do too. Even though there's satanic elements, like not down with Satan, but like as far as satanic music goes, like it's good in an interesting sort of window into that world, and it's a good thing I think to focus on for the spooky season. But I think, as we've reiterated many times, like not to single it out, but it is like just one node that I think it draws out and invites exploration. It's just one node of a larger cultural phenomenon that it can be observed in many like subgenres of music, and like in in hip hop music in general, even that which isn't necessarily directly sort of influenced by this genre, but maybe perhaps indirectly, but maybe not. Directly.
And I think we also have to keep in mind that the record companies that put out all of the major hip hop records in America are also the same record companies that put out every other major genre of music throughout the 20th century. So if they were seeding like satanic messages in one genre, it's kind of likely that they might be down to try it in another genre, or or try to inject it in whichever genre is ascendant. At any time.
Kupsanika, may he rest in peace.
Indeed.
Like said, he felt 3 years before his death, he felt that the devil used him to popularize 666, and even though he didn't believe in that motherfucker anymore, and he
I like that he called the devil a bitch.
Yeah, it was funny, like how he felt he was used by him but didn't believe in him. I guess he didn't follow him, but maybe he believed in him. I don't know. But anyway,
I think maybe that's kind of what he meant, is like he doesn't give his like mental energy to kind of he doesn't give any currency in his heart to that idea anymore as being like a good thing. And I think he was maybe, I don't know, don't want
But
to
he
judge
felt he
anybody.
was used by him to, popularize this idea and make it comfortable to a new part of the American population that, he felt it hadn't penetrated as much. And yeah, so
And when
I
you
think
think
that
about a
it seems like he
certain-
succeeded because now we have unknownism. Although there's some resistance, but now we have unknownism. I'm just saying, what's wrong with Islam? See, this is the thing. This is why they killed Malcolm X, because then it would have been a completely different story. But that's another time.
And I mean, maybe if we want to be charitable, that's why the Memphis Dixie Mafia and U.S. Army intelligence had to take out Martin Luther King, perhaps on certain ley lines. Yeah. I don't know.
Perhaps on certain ley lines. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the same sort of thing. They were both they were both religious figures. And I think, Martin Luther King was a threat for various reasons, the similar ones to why Malcolm X was. I think that Malcolm X potentially could have, brought a lot of people to Islam if he had been allowed to live, especially, it came right after his sort of break with the NOI, which is and he sort of plugged into the larger, more international tradition of Sunni
That's
Islam.
right. And he went on Hajj, right?
Yeah, he had. I mean, that's maybe for another time, but so no, he was killed, and now we have unknownism, so that's cool. I mean, I feel almost a little bit, I'm even though this is a massive celebrity who would never in a million years hear this, and I do feel I'm punching down a little bit because he's young, well, I'm just saying not that he would ever listen to what I have to say. He'd probably be infuriated if I would presume to give him any counsel about anything. But my counsel to him would be to look into Islam. But just what I'm saying. If you don't like Christianity, but you want some positivity, it couldn't hurt.
Well, I mean, at 23, I was listening to 666 Mafia and had a much more flippant attitude about satanic aesthetics in art and music and stuff, and so I think we all can grow from experience.
I don't think that I was Muslim yet at 23. Maybe I think it was maybe 24. No, maybe I don't know. But anyway, I think by then probably. But
I was just floating in kind of the liberal secularist.
But I was still dumb.
Mostly.
I was still dumb.
Brains still developing.
So maybe there's hope. For,
but I think I think for now we can leave it there. Definitely check out Lord Infamous and Children of the Corn.
Children of the Corn, the single, is a good highlight, I think. And I think that's
Suffer,
one that,
great track.
Suffer is a great track. Yeah,
put some of these in the interludes here.
Some good. There's some good Islamic references there. And I definitely think. And you can't really, hold anything against the Children of the Corn guys, because I think that was just some nice, some spoopy Halloween fun. They even dissolved the group a little bit after that, and so I feel like, it does have a sort of sinister force to it. So who knows?
I'd say
anyway.
I think we can focus our suspicions and even our
something about Trapezoid and just something about Saw Baby just throws me the wrong way. Sorry, I
think it's that he's
it just gives me a bad vibe.
Let's focus on the people that are on the Billboard Top 40 that have upside down crosses on their heads and 666 over all their clothes. We'll get to them first. We'll be most vigilant towards them, even if they know not what they do.
Word. Some you could be suspicious of Juice WRLD or Triple X and Tachina, but they're gone.
They're gone.
So
they're gone. Exactly.
Be careful.
Be careful what you sell your soul for. Just don't sell your soul. Just do you.
Don't sell your soul.
Make your music.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good principle that if, like, the devil approaches you in any way, like, I don't know why people can't internalize this. Like, it just seems like a simple concept, like, even to, like, even if you don't believe in the devil, like, at all, like, if the devil shows up and offers you to sell your soul, then, like, surely you should have the flexibility to be like, no, right? Like, you know, at that point, anyway, whatever.
It is, but you know, they make it tempting. That's the thing.
I guess so,
and you know,
yeah.
the devil couldn't do it without the good old American system. You know,
well, they
dangling
said
riches
that,
and power and fame.
Well, they say that the greatest trick the devil ever played was, you know, becoming unknown, convincing people he didn't exist. Hiding himself behind
convincing people that he was unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't exist because you can't know
yeah.
something that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. If the devil was unknown, that's his greatest powers. Unknown.
Yeah. So
Yes.
if you're traveling down an old country road or the Mississippi River, dear listeners, and you happen to see a devil, just keep driving. And until next time, stay vigilant.
Peace.
Snap, crackle, pop, you bet drop with the 9 Glock. Niggas, you better be watching your back when you fucking with a psycho jock. Niggas get grabbed and get stabbed with the fucking shank. You better think when you're fucking with niggas that it's hot as a tank. Bring it on, nigga, I got these bolos for your monkey ass. Let your throat, look at your choke, then I just kick back and laugh. Graveyard, gangsta, sinisters is running this shit. Bitch, you better be coming to cool when you fucking with the GGS click. Walking through the graveyard. This is the niggas I ripped apart. Up with his head, look at him bleed. Then I left him in the dark side. Go like no ordinary nigga. Whoa, crazy ass nigga from the streets of Chicago. Kicking it with my folks, getting fucked up is my daily routine. Yo, I'm kinda cold, go grab that hoe and get the gasoline. Strike a match, 3 steps back, cause I am insane. Niggas laughing, I'm steady grabbing lame ass niggas that throwing the flames. Ain't nobody crazier than the WANTSTA. I'm so psycho, that Chuck you won't even play. So don't try to scream this, cause can't nothing save ya. Went to the gangster bitch, aka Hellraiser. Deranged, insane in the brain. These niggas, they get slain. Bodies drained, they in pain. Throw them in a burning flame. Nigga, talk your ass off, but can you back it up? Bring it on, nigga, play. Pussy, get your ass stuck. Burning niggas with a torch. Killing for a new port. Cut their throat, look at them choke. Nigga, this ain't no fucking joke. Racking and stacking dead bodies in the fucking basement, G. Packing, no lacking, just jacking niggas who run up to me. Gangsta to gangsta, no prankster. I bang, get then hang, get then gang, get then shank, get then hang, you bitch. Scratch your name up on my fucking hit list. Nigga, get pissed, cause you know you can't get with this. Kill a man, understand, motherfucking murder, you see. Niggas who try to run up to me, they always end up on channel 3 news, singing the blues. Another victim just died, G. Add them to the stack of the rest of their dead bodies. So don't try to scream, cause can't nothing save you. Once again, Hellraiser took over this bitch. Yeah. Like to send a shout out to my niggas up there in Sherwood, you know what I'm saying? Send a shout out to 833, yeah. Maniac, you know what I'm saying? You in the house, baby. Psycho, yo, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Rico, you know what I'm saying? AKA Dirty Man. Evil E, you know what I'm saying? Y'all know this bitch. My nigga Poncho from Chi-Town. Yeah, y'all like this shit, don't it? Yeah, and don't forget, this one to the gangster, bitch.